Hello, hello. Is the lemon boy innocent of crime? I sure hope so. I don't really know what's gonna happen next, to be honest. Is the audio okay? By the way, the music, I mean. I also did like some changes to my microphone, not like any big changes or anything. So yeah, you'll just have to like let me know if like it's not working that well, I guess. Anyways, I was gone from Thursday. So I'm quieter than music. Okay, hold on, let me just turn down. I hope that's better. I was gone from Thursday until yesterday because I once again went on the heckin' cruise that goes to Germany. It's better? Better, but is it good? Yeah. It's good? Turn it a bit. There we go. Yes, I was on the cruise, the 2-day cruise again. And I'm going on it again next month. My mom is the one who's just like, hey, you wanna go? And I'm just like, sure, why not? And I don't know what the fuck happened, but something surely did. I guess it was just like something with my vibes or something. I don't fucking know, but it's like the strangest fucking thing. We got onto the ship. If so, why not? Yeah, exactly. We got onto the ship on Thursday, and then we were planning on going to like the diner that's on like deck 12 or something. No. Whatever, the deck isn't really important anyway. Anyways, we went there and we were just gonna have like a burger or something, and I spilled on my pants and I was like, well, that's kind of annoying. At least I brought extras, so it's fine, right? And then fast forward to later that same evening, we went upstairs to like the fucking it's called something or other. Observation lounge, that's it. Where you have like this like panoramic view out from like the top of the ship pretty much. And I just got a drink, non-alcoholic. So it's nothing like that. But of course, when I got to the end, luckily it was at the end and I only had like the little fruit skewer left or whatever. But I spilled it on myself and on the floor. And I'm like, oh my god, this is the second time today. Then on Friday, we went to eat dinner. And there is this guy who sits on like the table next to us who drops his fucking bread on the floor, and I'm like, oh my god. Yesterday it was me, today it's someone else, I guess. And then we went up to the observation lounge again at the same time, and someone spilled something while I was there. The bonus curse, no, it's me. I'm the one that's cursed, obviously. Oh my god, I forgot. We actually went to like the bar earlier that Friday. And I had the drink, like the same drink I had the night prior because I didn't get to finish it properly. And there was this, what's it called? Anyways, word escaped me. But she came out with like a tray of beers or whatever to like the table next to us. And she like spilled it all. Well, not everything, but she at least like spilled a few glasses. And I'm just like, oh my god, I'm fucking cursed. So like literally everywhere we went on that Friday, someone spilled something or other. right next to us. I'm sorry? Like, Thursday was my day to just spill everything everywhere. Friday, that just kind of like passed over to like whoever was next to us. That's so weird. And it doesn't stop there. But I had the fucking best luck last night. I was like, okay, it's getting kind of late, but I just want to get like a Coke or something. So I got like a Coke can from the trip that I had in my fridge, and I had no issues. And then I decided, you know what, I'm just gonna do like some testing with my microphone because I don't really like the way it's sounding. It's sounding kind of muffled at times, and I don't know what to do about that. Right now I have it like a bit further away than I usually do, because I did like some experimenting and stuff with that. And I had like the little can just like right underneath the mic stand, or wherever the mic was like gonna swing, and it fell over. And I was just like, oh my god, no! But somehow, miraculously, nothing spilled. And I'm just like, oh my god, what the fuck is this? None of the computer. Yeah, I was like so worried. But I don't know how it's physically possible, because there was still like a decent amount left in. Like, it wasn't like less than half, I believe. Maybe it was, I don't know. But I found it as like a fucking miracle that it just fell over backwards, and somehow nothing spilled out of it. I was so sure it was gonna fall backwards and like turn around and like pour out, but it didn't. The universe wanted to make up for Thursday, Friday. Yeah, for real. Like, that's so weird. That's so weird. Like, I'm not superstitious at all, but like, what the fuck was that? Anyways, I think let's just get into the game. I just had to talk about that a bit. Okay, we've just finished the trial. The first part anyway. And now we're back here. Oh yes, this is the return! Yes! Oh, this room. It's been too long. It hasn't changed in the slightest though. It's been some 6 months, hasn't it? It's a long time for things to stay so familiar. I didn't know when you might return, and I wanted everything to be as you'd left it. But it has been some 6 months, it's true.
So is your father alright, Susie? What happened?
My father? Yes, Professor Mikotoba. I mean, it was half a year ago, but that's why you went back to Japan. Because of the telegram you received saying he'd fallen ill with a very high fever for some unknown reason.
That's right! So I was surprised to learn that you'd be coming back so soon. Surprised, but happy.
Is the audio okay? I just worry I'm gonna be like a lot more quiet now since I moved my mic a bit away from my face. I am more quiet. Okay, I guess, no, I don't want to turn, you can turn up the sensitivity of my mic, but I don't know if that's gonna do anything. I'll just leave it where it was. Let me turn down, music is, no, I'm pretty sure I am lower because I haven't done anything to the music. Well, that just muted the entire thing. Can we get it to like there? Is that a bit better? Or is that like too low? It's good? Okay.
I think I wrote about it in my letter to you. That it was all a trick. My father is in fine health, and I'm obviously very relieved about that.
Well, we're all delighted to have you back.
It's quite by accident that I have been able to return to Europe, actually. It's because of a very grand conference called the International Forensic Science Symposium.
The International Forensic... That's the same symposium Lord Strongheart mentioned.
Anyway, I've arrived safe and sound, and all that matters is that I'm here now. After all, I haven't yet fulfilled my promise to you, Iris.
You must tell us everything that happened while we were back in Japan. What was that promise? I don't remember. It's been too long.
Yes, of course, I shall.
And there's one other thing. Something you wrote in your letter that particularly grabbed my attention. About you-know-who. About Kazuma. Think about how she knew about the book title? Ooh. The... Hound of the Baskerville or something? Is that the one you mean?
I know.
Yeah. Okay. She's a time traveler. That's it.
I'll tell you all that I can.
Yes. Do please tell us about Kazuma. Okay.
When I first arrived back in Japan, I really thought I'd never be allowed to return to Britain. But curiously, after that awful trial at the Supreme Court, Father's mood changed entirely.
The awful trial? Oh, yes. For the murder of Giselle Brett.
Ooh, you dressed as a man then, didn't you, Susie?
Oh, well, yes. Since women are forbidden in the courtroom, I had no choice.
Wow, amazing! I wish I'd seen it. Don't you, Runo?
Yes, I suppose so.
I want to play at being a lawyer now. I could wear a false mustache, maybe.
I don't think any mustache could hide the fact that you were just 10 years old, Iris. There's something else I've been wanting to ask you, Mrs. Soto. It's about the real reason why Professor Mikotoba summoned you back to Japan. You said in your letter it was something to do with that convict salute we found in Mr. Natsume's lodgings. Okay, yes. I remember that.
That's right. The very large dog collar we found with the bee emblem on it. It seems Mr. Natsume included the drawing of the collar in the report he submitted about his time in Britain. I understand that when Father saw the report, he turned as white as a sheet.
That bee, then?
Father came to Britain himself, of course, to study. It was some time ago now, but he stayed for 6 years. I can only imagine that something must have happened during that time. But if he refuses to tell me what it was, then I intend to find the answers for myself. And I've decided that I, for one, won't keep any more secrets. Oh, Susie!
That's a very meaningful look Sasato-san's giving Iris there. I just called her Sasato. No, I pressed the wrong button. I accidentally hit the button. What? Not even about John Wilson. Sasato. Yeah, I wonder when they're gonna tell Iris that her father is dead. Lord Strongheart mentioned something about that symposium too. I think he said that investigative authorities from 40 different countries would attend.
Yes, and from Japan. My father and Judge Jigoku. have been invited. Jikoku.
Isn't that hell? Judge Hell? The Hell Judge? Alright.
It's something of an honor, I believe.
Well, Professor Mikotoba is the leading expert in forensic medicine in our country, after all. But who's the other person you mentioned? A judge, did you say?
Yes, His Excellency Judge Seishiro Jikoku. You've met him, Mr. Naruhodo. Last year, in the Supreme Court. You can't possibly have forgotten.
His name is Hell? Imagine! Wait. That's their last name. Oh no. The Hell family. Hell yeah. Let's go.
The terrible trial of yours when you were accused of murder.
Ah, yes, I try to think of that as a positive turning point in my life these days.
Well, it was Judge Jikoku who presided over that trial.
Hell yeah. Mr. Hell, let's go.
If I'm perfectly honest, I'd be happy never to see that man's face again in my life. Oh, well, anyway, as father was invited to the symposium, he agreed to me returning to Britain too. He won't actually arrive until next month, but, well, I couldn't wait. So I pleaded with him, and in the end he agreed to me going on ahead.
Yes, about the symposium. It seems as though Lord Strongheart has put in an awful lot of work to make it happen. It's obviously very important.
I believe it is, yes. As I understand it, Lord Strongheart organized the entire event himself. I think he's hoping that by achieving exceptional results, he'll get the job of Attorney General.
I just realized I forgot to fucking post this on Twitter! Jikoku, when written as Jikoku, means hell. His surname, Jikoku, uses different kanji specifically, which means mercy. No, don't care. Don't care. The Goku has the same kanji. So yeah, it's just G that's different. But I believe it's meant to be like a pun because it sounds like Jikoku, right? Which is hell. Hold on. There we go. The most senior position in the British justice system.
He's hoping to use his power to create the world's finest policing institution.
Okay, no worries. Hold on. Let me...
That's what father said anyway. Apparently it's Lord Strongheart's lifelong ambition.
Does Professor Mikotoba know Lord Strongheart personally then, I wonder? Actually, Lord Strongheart gave me a long speech all about this very subject only yesterday. But I sort of lost the will to live early on and didn't really listen to much of it.
I'm trying for you.
Giselle Brett. The woman whose unforgivable actions ended in me being wrongly accused of a crime I didn't commit. The murder of Dr. John H. Wilson. Here we go! Ha! Who also happens to be Iris's father. I think you should tell her. That he's dead. I mean, right now would kind of be bad because we'd be like, yeah, so we actually knew this like all along that your father was dead. Like as soon as you mentioned him by name, we were like, ah, shit, yeah, no, he's dead. But we kept this from you. So like, what do you? Yes, Giselle Brett. That's a name I won't forget as long as I live.
The extraordinary thing is, though, it seems it's a name we should all forget.
Sorry?
Since the incident, our government's intelligence services have been investigating Miss Brett. But it turns out that an Englishwoman by the name of Giselle Brett didn't actually exist.
The plot thickens. Alright, didn't exist? But how can that be?
It was a pseudonym. Her real name was Shin. And she wasn't a visiting student either. That was a front.
Dun dun dun! A front? Who on earth was she then?
Miss A. Shin. Her name is literally all our intelligence services have been able to ascertain about her. Nobody knows why or even how she came to be in Japan. It's a complete mystery.
But that makes no sense. It's no easy task to be accepted as a foreign student anywhere. What could the woman have been up to?
I'm afraid I really don't know. The only thing we can be sure of is that she had some business in our country that we don't yet understand.
And now she's been killed. While all the questions surrounding her existence remain unanswered.
I'm afraid so.
Hey Shin. Who on earth was she? And why do I feel as though I've heard that name before somewhere? Is that supposed to ring a bell for us? Okay, Kazuma, let's go.
After my friend Re's trial, the reporter who actually killed Miss Brett said something very strange.
A mini memo. You know the truth. I know you had a hand in what went on. And the visiting student's fate. Nobody here in Japan knows anything about it. You don't know that the guy never made it to England, that he died on that steamship, and that he'll never...
Obviously, I couldn't ask him to elaborate at the time. But later, I visited the man in his prison cell and asked him what he was going to say about Kazuma-sama.
And what did you learn?
After he died on the voyage to Great Britain, his body should have been unladen at the port of Hong Kong and passed into the care of the consulate staff there.
Should have been?
It turns out that his body never arrived. It just disappeared.
I think the Asian was mentioned in the secret government recording. Naruhodo got suspended for playing. Oh, you're right! How do you remember this? What? Kazuma's body vanished?
Our government tried to cover the fact up, it seems. They erected a grave on the cliffs by our hometown. Except, Kazuma-sama isn't there.
Did Professor Mikotoba know about this?
Yes, it would seem that he did. But he didn't tell me. They're still investigating what happened to Kazuma-sama's body as we speak.
I just don't believe it. And what is this acute feeling of apprehension I have all of a sudden? The Kazuma mystery. But my memory is whack, I just want to remember where I put my phone, but no, I remember obscure details instead. Yeah, it'd be like that. It'd be like that. Thinking back now, some of the things that happened in the SS Buria were definitely strange. I mean, after he died, we never saw his body again, did we? Could it be that he's actually still alive? Stop it, Mr. Naruhodo! It's too much to bear. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to... Just thinking about the possibility pains me so very much. It was Sholmes that pronounced him dead? I think so, yeah. So... Can we even trust Sholmes at this fucking point? Like...
Cast cast your mind back for a moment, Mr. Naruhodo. When Kazuma-sama was discovered, Mr. Sholmes was there, wasn't he? And he definitely examined the body. I remember it clearly.
You're right. So if Kazuma hadn't actually been dead at all, it would mean that Mr. Sholmes had lied to us.
But there's no reason why he would possibly have done such a thing.
I suppose that's true, yes. So all Sholmes has done is lie and not told us shit. Yeah, seems that way.
The idea that he might still be alive somewhere. It wants to fill me with hope, but I can't let it. Because if it turned out not to be true, I'd be back at the bottom of that awful pit of despair again. I'm terrified of what that might do to me.
Oh, Miss Susato. I know she's given the idea the thought it deserves. It's Susato-san we're talking about after all. But I probably shouldn't push it now. Thinking back, that spade's been in here since we first moved in, hasn't it?
Sure, I've told you before, Mr. Naruhodo. It's not a spade. It's a shovel.
No, shovels are for digging. That's for scooping up loose material. It's a spade.
No, spades are for digging. That's for scooping up loose material. It's a shovel.
Great spade shovel war rages on. It sure does. It sure does. Oh! Iris, there you are.
It must be about a year ago now. I wrote a really long story based on some of my father's old notes. It's about one of Hurley's greatest exploits. I called it The Hound of the Baskervilles.
But then Mr. Sholmes forbade you from publishing it. And put the manuscript somewhere nobody else could get their hands on it.
So nobody knows anything about it apart from Hurley and I. And for some reason, you knew the title of it, didn't you, Susie? Sounds so exciting, The Hound of the Baskervilles. I should love to read it. You wouldn't tell me how you'd come to know it. Yes, but I made you a promise that I would explain one day, didn't I? I think it's time.
Oh, she's gonna tell! Yes! Yes! Let's go! Let's go!
I'm only sorry I've had to keep it from you for so long, Iris. It was completely by accident that I came to know the title of your manuscript, Iris. It was a short while before we left Japan. I was cleaning Father's study and saw something on his writing desk. A large box of papers. There was a label affixed to the box that was written in English. It read, The Hound of the Baskervilles.
What?
My Baskerville story. Of course, I had no idea what it was at the time. But Father came in and...
Susato, what are you doing?
Oh, Father!
Did you look at those papers?
No, I simply read the label, that's all.
Well, put it out of your mind.
Sorry?
Forget that you ever saw it, and certainly don't tell anybody else about this. You understand? But what was Iris's manuscript doing in Japan?
I have no idea. But when I heard Iris mention the word Baskerville that day, the title just slipped out. I would never have guessed that it was an unpublished account of one of Mr. Sholmes' exploits. When I returned to Japan, I asked Father to explain. But he refused to answer any of my questions, and there was no sign of the big box in his office. That's really all I know about it. I've no doubt that Father has a very good reason for being so secretive about it, but still. I made up my mind to explain myself to both of you. Thank Thank you for being so honest, Susie. So, Mr. Naruhodo, I'm ready to start investigating if you are. I've committed every detail about the case to memory. And Iris has told me about the disturbing happenings at the Waxwork Museum as well.
So you're fully abreast of the situation already, Mrs. Soto. I'd expect nothing less, to be honest.
I would think our first port of call should be to investigate this Mr. Drebber. The engineer responsible for building the elaborate machine that was used to effect this extraordinary trick.
Yes, a conjurer of sorts, by the sounds of it. Well known in the fields of science and magic.
Then we need to go and arrest him.
Well, yes. We must know the truth behind this case, so I agree we really do need to find the man. He's gonna be dead. I fucking bet.
It sounds like it's a case of tracking someone down. Which is a job for the police, or a great detective.
Are we supposed to guess who she might be thinking of? We don't have much time, so we need to get started right away, I think.
Good idea. Well, best of luck then.
Oh, you're not coming today?
I'm going to Brixton Road shortly for the herb market. But let me know later how you got on, wouldn't you?
Sure. That was a little abrupt. The pull of the herb market must be strong. I guess we can't go there. Yeah, I don't believe we have any business that would require a visit here. Interesting. I like that. Usually we can just go wherever. What is the new... Sure, let's go to the person. We can visit Pigeon Man. Oh! Yep, there he is. What's he doing?
He's... Oh my! The whole wall of the cell is covered in mathematical equations.
And he's still writing more now. Professor? Sorry to interrupt. Oh, Mr. Naruhodo. Who is this young lady?
My name is Susato Mikutoba. I am Mr. Naruhodo's judicial assistant. It's a pleasure to meet you, Professor.
Oh, if only I met a refined young woman like you sooner. None of this would have happened. No, that's not logical. That makes no sense at all.
Oh dear, I'm sorry if my presence here upsets you.
I owe you an apology too, Professor. I didn't manage to deliver what you promised I would in court this morning. Oh, no. The whole thing, the whole miserable affair. It all happened because I've been such a complete and utter clot.
Professor Limone, what have you been working on in your cell?
Oh, you mean that? Oh dear, how embarrassing. I was suddenly struck by an idea, you see, and I simply had to write it down. The wall was all I had to hand. Oh, is it some new hypothesis? Something to surpass super high voltage instantaneous kinesis, maybe? No, actually, this is my autobiography. I mean, your autobiography? How was Sorry, this is I need to screenshot. This is funny because I have a friend who is obsessed with the Riddler at the moment, and just to be mean, I called him like the Diddler. my odd fortunes with only odd numbers in an ambitious set of simultaneous equations.
Really?
I'm going to have to pay back all the loans I took for the kinesis machine, you see. So it's going to be a new serial publication from next month, part 1. An odd birth, an odd upbringing. You can't beat the man's optimism, that's for sure. I see. Well, for now, would you mind if we talked a little more about the case? Oh, yes. Yes, of course. I've been working through the numbers. I was fiddled by the pair of the... It's too funny. My ass man! I was diddled and fiddled by the ass man! And by the aloof engineer dropper. Oh my god. We're not gonna have to sit through an explanation of all these equations, are we? I can't take this seriously. Oh my god, I can't... Breathe. Oh. Stop, that's so funny. Oh my god. Okay, let's talk to him. Let's talk about the trial. Everything I believed in has been turned on its head. My research, Mr. Rasmus, the kinesis machine, my hypothesis even. I'm sorry it's come to this. There was really no other way. No, it's not your fault. I wanted to protect my work, but in the end, there was nothing worth protecting. It was never my intention to deceive anyone. I didn't want to trick the public.
No, of course you didn't.
But in court this morning, I realized something. Oh? If you've done something wrong without knowing it, you've still done something wrong. Logically, it makes no difference if you were aware of it or not. Ignorance is a poor excuse. The blame still lies with me.
Professor!
He believed in me this morning, you know. Barack did. He believed in my hypotheses. Well, I think that was just a necessary factor in the prosecution establishing its case. No, Barack wouldn't do something like that. I'm sure he genuinely believed it. Did he? I think I understand now. Why it was that he decided to take on the prosecution in my trial, I mean. Alright, what's his motivation? After the terrible accident happened, nobody would believe in my hypotheses anymore. Not the police, not the prosecution service, not any lawyers even. I feel like I dealt some kind of finishing blow there. So if any other prosecutor had taken the case, if it was anyone other than Barack, I'm sure the prosecution would have declared my hypotheses a complete and utter nonsense.
And in that case, you would have been declared a fraud yourself, Professor.
Exactly, which would have been a fate worse than death for me. But Barack insisted that I was a proper man of science from start to finish. You think that's why he... I know him very well indeed. He's an extremely kind-hearted soul.
But that extremely kind-hearted soul spent all morning trying to paint you as a murderer, didn't he?
Well, admittedly, that part of the analysis appears to have some flaws in it. And what about the whole Reaper side of things? How does that fit in with the kind-hearted soul idea? I choked on my water so hard from Diddle by Ass Man. Who? Was Janet Sue in charge of the localization team for this? I believe she was. She usually is. Like the only game she hasn't localized is like the first Ace Attorney game, I think. Who decided that was a phrasing? Janet Sue. I sure hope it was. Mr. Assman. You think he set out to trick me from the very start? I'm sorry to say, that does seem likely, yes. When I first met him, he introduced himself as a wealthy financier. He looked over the paper I'd written, and said my work would benefit all humanity and must be pursued. He was so enthused. He was so emphatic. But in reality, he was the mastermind of some vast criminal network, it seems. She's now both my hero and arch nemesis. I still can't believe it.
As the machine was essentially a set decoration for some stage magic. It probably didn't require a large amount of investment, actually.
But the scale of it, it wasn't just some small trick. It was a very elaborate feat of deception. All young scientists are full of hope about their burgeoning ideas, full of zeal. But none of us have any money. We want to do research, but we can't afford it. Many of us take on barely legal part-time work to try to earn just a few measly pennies to carry on. To go through all of that only to be taken for a complete fool is too rotten to believe. It is, I agree. That's why we have to find those responsible and bring them to justice. Mr. Assman is no more, of course, which leaves only the engineer.
Mr. Enoch Drebber.
Is he an engineer, or a magician, or a swindler? It was about a year ago when Mr. Assman first brought Drebber to meet me at my laboratory. Since then, I've met him many times to discuss details about the kinesis machine. But at no point did you have any inkling that he was just an illusionist. Oh, he definitely wasn't just an illusionist. What do you mean? He was a wealth of deep scientific knowledge. There's no question that the man's a genuine scientist. It's instantly apparent in conversation. I see.
But the wretched man deceived you, Professor. It's unforgivable. We must do everything we can to find him and bring him to justice. And are there no more clues you can give us as to his whereabouts?
I'm sorry. We only ever discussed the kinesis machine, nothing else. Although, just once his statement is historically accurate, medical students were infamous for digging up graves for corpses to use in experiments and potential loot. I mean, didn't we see that happen in the Sherlock Chapter 1 game? It's gotten to the point where I worry I'm gonna mess up Herlock and Sherlock. I just I need to stop myself before I say Sholmes or Holmes, and I'm just like, which one is right? I don't know anymore. I did visit his workshop. What workshop? Drebber's enormous fabrication laboratory, where he constructed my great machine. Why didn't you mention this before? Enoch Drebber's workshop. There's every chance we might find the man there. The wealthy would sometimes even buy cages around their coffins to prevent their bodies from being dug up. Interesting. So you've been to Drebber's place of work then? Yes, just once, you understand. It was an enormous place, plenty of room to construct the kinesis machine, you see. Where can we find it? We have to go there at once. There's a good chance that we'll find Drebber there. Well, yes, definitely. I'm sure, as in, I'm sure you're not going to want to hear this. What? Lay it on me. But I have absolutely no idea where the workshop is at all. What, were you kidnapped when you were visiting? I'm so sorry. I was more than half expecting that. You see, I was blindfolded in the carriage the entire way there. He blindfolded you? He wasn't taking any chances then. The place was incredible! The pinnacle of modern engineering! Even the oil he used was the very best. A special French machine oil that's impossible to obtain in Britain. Ah, the indescribable scent of that imported oil. Sorry. What was the thing that, Sycamore said in the anime? Like the flavor of oil? Like, sir? I don't think... Yeah, the fragrant flavor of oil. That's what he said. Is that not what you meant? Scent? Nah. The fragrant flavor of imported oil. Perfumers across the world should forget their secret formula and use that instead. What do you think, Mr. Soto? Oh, the machine for your next birthday?
I've never used any kind of perfume, Mr. Naruhodo. And I'm not sure I'd like to start with that.
He just drinks it for breakfast.
I don't suppose you know even part of the workshop's address, Professor. You don't have a business card from Mr. Drebber, for example.
The man was clearly very cautious, Mrs. Soto. I'm sure. You do? He gave me his business card. Oh my god, are you kidding? Throw etiquette to the wind, why don't you?
Enoch Drebber, engineer. I'm afraid that's all it says. There's no address. Well,
can't say I'm surprised. Still, this could be useful. The fuck is this? This dark smudge here.
I think perhaps it's machine oil.
Ah, yes, possibly. Professor Limone mentioned something about the oil Mr. Drebber uses, didn't he? He said it was specially imported, very high-quality oil that's impossible to obtain in Britain.
Yes, that's right. But more importantly, that is more fragrant than the finest perfume, so excuse me a moment.
Fragrant flavor. Yummy oil.
Oh, it doesn't appear to have any scent at all.
Don't worry. I expect that's just because there's such a tiny amount on there. It has 2 layers. You can find the address if you just open it up. I don't fucking know. Now, let me just spam everything to you and see what you have to say. Yeah, okay, I already showed this. Or I wouldn't be able to skip it. Nope. Okay. Just want to make sure. Okay, that's just the same. Professor, do you recognize this? It's Andrew, my faithful friend. I can't skip this. How have you been? You alright? Nobody mistreated you, have they? Don't worry, he's being very well looked after. I always rub him with machine oil until he's gleaming. Right. And then, when I come to tighten a screw with him, he slips in my hand and I can't do it. It's that age-old problem faced by driver files. What the fuck is this? What is this? Screenshot, because what the fuck? Driver files? Driver files? I both want to Google that and also really do not. Yeah, no. I really wouldn't know, I'm afraid. Regrets. Oh my god. Fuck, that's so funny. Okay, now we know it's nothing there. And we can leave. Who is that? Oh, who's that standing beside Lord Strongheart? I wonder. I've never seen her before. Ah, the young champion of the court. You had some success this morning, I understand. Thankfully, driver files just gets you a bunch of driver files websites. Well, why did you look it up? And you've thrown the entire government into disarray as a result. Oh, you mean because of Professor Limone's experiments? Sham science being demonstrated at London's Great Exhibition. The country's been made to look foolish, and now politicians are scrabbling to respond. Lord von Zeeks is in Whitehall as we speak, giving an emergency briefing. Oh dear, I didn't mean to cause you any trouble. None of this is your responsibility. The government is entirely to blame for having been taken in. The special dispensation that prevents investigation at the scene will be annulled later today. Once that happens, my forensic investigation team will move in and deal with that scrap metal in no time. It's scrap metal now, is it? Till later then, Strongheart. Yes, thank you. I had to know if it was an actual thing. Well, now you know that it probably still is. Who was that? That was Dr. Courtney's scythe. I thought that said shite. Scotland Yard's esteemed Chief Coroner. She's leading the forensic investigation team's handling of this case. She was just delivering her report about the victim, in fact. Oh, I see. About Mr. Asman. Following the outcome of the trial earlier, I decided the coroner's office to reevaluate its findings. I don't have time to tell you what she concluded. If you want to know, you'll have to ask her directly. You can find her in the forensics laboratory. Ah, right. Now, what were you here to see me about? I can give you 7 minutes and 39 seconds of my time. Mr. Assman and Dr. Shite, the dynamic too. So he's not running quite so spectacularly late anymore. What exactly is the forensic investigation team that you mentioned before? The British Empire's police force must become the most exemplary in the world. For that to happen, it's imperative that we embrace forensic science and everything it has to offer. I first created the forensic investigation team a year ago. Now, unofficially of course, to pave the way.
Goodness, a year ago.
At next month's symposium, I intend to present the results of their work to the world. Once I do that, the House of Lords will be powerless to oppose the creation of a full-scale forensics division. And once that happens, the position of Attorney General will be mine, and criminals will suffer dearly. What do you mean? For too long, those scoundrels have made a mockery of our legal system with false evidence and bribes. But London's scum is about to be rounded up and burnt in the fires of hell. I intend to see to it personally. By creating the finest police force the world has ever known, to protect our honor and our future. Look at those eyes. He means every word. Dr. Shines. I can't! I want to be funny, but I just make myself laugh. I don't know why. People still bribe their way out of jail today. True. Dr. Scythe is an extremely reliable colonel. Is that how you pronounce that? I need to, like, double check. Yeah, no it is. Like a Or is it just coroner? Do you say that in British English too? Maybe? I don't know. When I officially establish the forensics division at Scotland Yard, she will run it as my right-hand woman. Now then, speaking of the symposium, Miss Mikotoba.
Oh, yes, my lord.
Your father should be on the high seas as we speak, making his way here to represent the Empire of Japan. Who the fuck is messaging me? I have like 2 messages suddenly. Like, people never message me on Discord. Why do I have 2 messages? Who are they? Coroner. Okay. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Thank you.
I understand he will arrive at the beginning of next month.
Are you acquainted, Lord Strongheart? With Professor Mikoto, I mean. It was many years ago now, but yes, I remember Dr. Mikotoba very well. If my memory serves, it was some 15 years ago now that your father came to Britain as a visiting student.
It was the year I was born. So yes, 16 years ago in fact.
I forget she's 16. I forget she's 16. I thought she was this a little bit older. Mikotoba was a young practitioner of forensic science, and Jikoku accompanied him as a young promising judge. The punctiliousness and politeness of the Japanese at the time impressed us greatly. Not that I wish to imply impoliteness or carelessness on your part in any way. If she's that young, I thought she was 18 at least. Yeah, me too. Me too, buddy. I didn't think that you were. Dr. Mikotoba studied forensics at one of London's large hospitals. St. Sinus, if I'm not mistaken. Dr. Scythe was also there then, as it happens.
Then, Dr. Scythe knows my father, does she?
She was a young medical assistant at the time, so I doubt their paths crossed regularly. How old is Kazuma? Is he 16? I thought they were the same age. I think Kazuma is older, but do we even have Kazuma here? I don't think so. Yeah, no. Her luck is 34. Bohemian boy. He doesn't even show up with his name! No! Now I don't know how old people are! Kazuma and Naruhodo are the same age, right? I think so? Maybe? She was a young medical assistant at the time, so I doubt their paths crossed regularly. But I've no doubt they knew each other superficially. After all, Dr. Mikotoba was here studying his subjects for some 6 years in total. 6 years? That's a long time to be studying abroad, isn't it?
I lived with my grandmother in those years.
Kazuma is 23!
It was a rather turbulent time at home.
What about Ryunosuke? Oh.
Perhaps father wanted a reason to get away.
What do you mean? Why? Well, clearly something was going on at the time. I wanted to ask you about Lord Van Zieks, actually. I heard that his older brother was killed some years ago by a mass murderer known as the Professor, who targeted nobles and royalty. That right? You Japanese are a thorough lot. You've done your research well. Yes. And you could say it was that very incident that gave rise to the Reaper. What? Why? When his brother, Clint Van Zieks, was murdered, it was just after young Baroque had graduated from the University of London and become a prosecutor. 23 as well, okay, I see. When obvious criminals who managed to evade conviction in court started disappearing, rumors quickly spread throughout the capital. Londoners started to say that wherever Baroque Van Zieks went, the ghost of his dead brother wasn't far behind.
Oh my word!
So Lord Van Zieks isn't the Reaper. It's the ghost of his brother? Ever since that time, he became a very aloof figure in London's legal circles. Oh, yes, Lord Strongheart. Go ahead. It's about Professor Limone's experimental machine. We'd like your permission to examine the remains if possible. Are you well versed in science then? Not in the slightest! In fact, you could say I was barely aware of the subject at all until recently. Well, the special dispensation legally preventing investigation of the machine is currently being annulled. Within a few hours, Dr. Tsai's team of forensic experts will begin their own investigation. But I suppose until then, there's no harm in you looking at the wreckage, as long as you touch nothing. Thank you! Being able to look at it is better than nothing.
And I'll be able to see it too!
Your time is up. You'll have to excuse me now, I'm afraid. My next engagement calls. Okay, bye.
We are extremely sorry to have troubled you when you are so busy, my lord.
I have important matters to attend to, in preparation for the symposium, you understand. Let me just... Oh, okay, I see. I just wanted to check who would message me. Shrimps 34, yes, we already went through this. Let's go to the lab first. I believe this is it. Dr. Scythe's laboratory. That chemical smell really assaults the nose, and there's plenty to assault the eyes in here too.
Looks as though the doctor isn't here. But we're here now, so we may as well do some sightseeing, don't you think?
What a seasoned tourist you've become, Mr. Sato. We could just have a little look around, being careful not to upset any restless souls. Alright. Large jars seem to have pale floating things in them. Those are fruit liquors or something. Or like the pickled umeboshi plums we make back home. I don't think it's fruit.
Father had jars just like that in his laboratory as well. I expect they're human organs in a preserving solution. Probably as examples of some rare medical condition.
Mr. Sato, there are some things in the world that it's perfectly fine never to know about. Ever. So as I said, I'm sure they're fruit liquors or umeboshi. Aren't they? Wink wink, hint hint. Of course! Look at all the bottles on the shelves. What an assortment of chemicals.
These ones here are labeled highly toxic.
Ugh, worrying because there are also things that look like salt and pepper shakers in there.
Oh yes, and they actually say salt and pepper on them. The doctor probably spends a lot of time in this room, I suppose. Perhaps she has meals here sometimes.
That doesn't sound like a good idea! Life goes on, even when you're surrounded by death. This is Dr. Scythe's desk. I'd not like to work in a place like this.
It's very tidy though, isn't it, Mr. Naruhodo? Imagine how efficiently she must work.
Lighting is poor, which is bad for the eyes, and the chemical smell can't be good for you. Not to mention the skeleton watching over you as you work, which is definitely bad for the nerves.
Yes, those are valid concerns, I suppose.
I can just about cope with a one-eyed Daruma doll watching over me, but that's all.
That looks like an owl and a crow up there.
I know, and they haven't even twitched since we came in here.
Oh no, they wouldn't have. They're taxidermy mounts, Mr. Naruhodo.
Ugh, I was afraid you were going to say that. I've been trying very hard to tell myself they're just sleeping with their eyes open. I think perhaps you were wise to put something like your Daruma doll on display in the office instead. This poor guy. Oh, look at this! What a magnificent display case! The cherry wood has been polished to a high sheen, and the intricate carving is a joy to behold. Western cabinet makers really are very skilled, aren't they?
Do you have nothing to say about the skeleton inside, Mr. Naruhodo?
Mr. Sato, can't you tell that I'm trying very hard to avoid talking about the terrifying contents of the case? It's how I cope!
I'll be sure to remember that from now on.
Sure you will. A table and a set of sharp tools. When you consider each in isolation, it all looks quite innocent. So why is it that when you put them side by side, they seem so horribly disturbing?
Might be best not to ponder it too deeply.
Dr. Shite has skeletons in her display cases?
How can anybody concentrate on bookwork with this acrid odor of chemicals in the air?
You'd either have to have a cast iron constitution, or a really terrible sense of smell. I think that's everything. Can't see any other. Okay. Let's just go to the experimentation stage.
puppy! I had no idea there were so many people in the world.
I know what you mean. It's really packed here today.
It feels as though it's taken us 2 hours just to make our way through the crowds to this point.
Has it? I shut my brain down, so I didn't really notice, to be honest.
Gosh, I do wish I had your absence of mind sometimes, Mr. Naruhodo.
Gregson? Yes! Oh, Inspector Gregson! I see you're hard at work as usual. All greetings to you. I do hope you've been keeping well since last we met. What's with all this ceremony? We just saw each other in the court this morning. Not you, Sunshine, the gentlewoman so loyally by your side.
Oh, I thank you, Inspector. How good of you to notice.
He might be a bit rough around the edges, but he's still a proper English gentleman at heart, I suppose. As you probably guessed, we were hoping to investigate the scene some more. Right. Oh, that's the young trainee's domain. Oi! Get over here, Gina! She seems to be busy playing with the puppy. Probably giving it a traditional East End training.
Gina! She's a police officer now?
Amazing, isn't it? He's a good kid, actually. All's in the right place, anyway. Just got the detection bug, if you ask me. Yep, I think she'll follow in my footsteps nicely. What do you mean? I'm being transferred. It's time for me to say toodaloo to London.
Oh no! Really?
That's a bit sudden, isn't it? I had no idea. Where are you going to be posted then? We'll come to see how you're getting along. Not likely, but you're welcome to try. If you don't mind a trip to France, that is. To France? I'll be working in the Paris Police Prefecture. Should be right up my alley. But France! It's an entirely different country. I don't understand. Why would you be sent there? That's the way the adult world works, Sunshine. Don't go poking your nose in where it's not wanted. I'm intended to take the kid with me when I go. What? You're taking Gina to Paris? Well, I can't leave her here in London. Who knows what'd become of her? I suppose he's worried she'd slip back into slipping her hands into people's pockets and purses.
I don't think he's worried about her pickpocketing, Mr. Naruhodo. I think he's worried about the Reaper.
Oh, of course. So that's playing on Inspector Gregson's mind too, is it? Anyway, I haven't mentioned any of this to Gina, so don't go blabbing, you hear me? No, of course not. Gotta keep that diving diva safe and sound until all this is over, at least.
Oi! Did you just call me a bloomin' diving diva again?
So you heard that, did you? Right, well, any questions about the scene, you can put them to my capable detective diva here.
Alright, you heard the boss. Inspector Lestrad's in charge here now.
I suppose I better keep my word and not mention anything about Paris. Gina, thoughts about Paris? You got a new dog, have you? Oh my god.
Isn't it great? Toby's his name. Oh, how delightful. He's absolutely adorable.
Yes, the dog does seem lovely. But it's the not-so-lovely Inspector Gregson that's playing on my mind, to be honest. Gina? We were actually hoping that we could investigate the scene again. Yeah, alright. If it's around here, you can do what you like. Oh, that's alright, is it? I'm gonna be
play with me new friend here? Ah, yes, Toby. The machine that exploded must be at the top of those stairs, I presume. I haven't actually seen it yet, so if you don't mind. Sorry, I can't go up there, Suze. Oh! It's like I told Otto yesterday. Even I ain't allowed near that wreck. What's it called again? The reason we ain't supposed to touch it? The Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act. Is that what you were thinking of? That's the one! That's why only them lot are allowed to investigate it. What are they called again? The Forensic something? Forensic Investigation Team? Is that what you were thinking of? That's the one, yeah! But isn't it the case that the special dispensation has been lifted? I think so, but I don't really get it, to be truthful with you. You're still supposed to get permission from some bigwig or other, as far as I know. What was his name again? Lord Strange something? I'm not sure that's quite right, Gina. I think you mean Lord Strongheart, perhaps. That's the one, yeah! Apparently he's always watching the time or something. Actually, you've just recently been to see Lord Strongheart. You what? You've met him? Last time the boss was called to go and see him. He waited for 3 hours at the Cove's office and came back sniveling. Tragic. Well, Lord Strongheart has given us permission to examine the scene as long as we touch nothing. Oh yeah? Honestly. Alright then. Go ahead. But if it turns out you're lying, it'll be the boss who gets it. He'll never eat another chip again in his life. Okay, so I wondered if they sent Gregson off to press because maybe he was... Oh my god. He was the police with Arsène Lupin, like Gina Lestradas and Sherlock. Instead, I found this. LeBlanc introduced Sherlock Holmes to Lupin in the short... Or Lupin? I don't know. Short story, Sherlock Holmes arrives too late. In it, an aged Holmes meets a young Lupin for the first time. After legal objections from Doyle, the name was changed to Sherlock Holmes when the story was collected in book form. Wait. This is so confusing. So you're still saying all this is above board, are you? I'm sure everything will be fine. It really would be tragic. Alright then, them's the stairs. Off you go. Oh, thank you, Gina. It was great, wasn't it? I had a right laugh. It was a new one on me, that. You know, being in court and not spending the whole time worrying I'm about to be found out. You did keep an awful lot of secrets in all your previous court appearances, didn't you? Yeah, and Otto's made things odd for me every single time and all. Just doing my job, Gina. But watching someone else get in the neck is a lot of fun, actually. It was amazing when you showed that dodgy professor's dodgy experiment was a total fix. The dodgy professor, as you put it, Gina, is Mr. Naruhodo's client. Like, this was back in 1906, and LeBlanc was really like, screw you to Doyle, I'm getting away with this, by just calling him Sherlock Holmes instead. Phoenix! Hello! Hello! Welcome in, welcome, welcome. It's the boss I feel sorry for, sent off to do the impossible. What do you mean? He's supposed to arrest the other cove, ain't he? And in time for tomorrow and all. You know, the dodgy engineer, what's his name again? Mr. Drebber, you mean?
Enoch Drebber.
That's the one, yeah! So the police are looking for this mysterious man with a black monocle. I guess they would be.
Who? The Monopoly guy? Does he have a monocle? Which is the guy with the monocle? Because the Monopoly guy is the one that doesn't have a monocle, right?
He's putting too much on the boss, if you ask me. He says it's giving him gut ache. Oh dear. But I do wonder if it isn't actually from all the fried food.
Yeah, Monopoly does not have a monocle. Yeah. And it's not the Pringles, man. It's not... I remember like years and years ago, there were like a lot. Breeze, hello! How are you doing today? You too, Phoenix. Good to see you're doing good. Scotland Yard are trying to track down Mr. Enoch Drebber. I wonder if they had any luck.
He's really funny looking, got two eyes what don't match, stole a glimpse of a picture of him earlier. I mean, I didn't actually pinch it or nothing. The old devil's got it.
Sorry, who?
You know, that scowling reaper what's always glugging down glasses so that blood red plunk.
It's so hard to read her stuff.
Lord Van Zeeks. He's always had it in for me, that cove. Don't know what he's always scowling about, mind.
That sure is a sentence I never ever thought I would read in my life. Ayo. Yeah, that's...
Probably would have been a pretty good boss as it goes. You'd rather be the Reaper's apprentice than a detective's trainee.
The way I see it, if the choice is between a chip-guzzling detective and a chalice-glugging demigod, you're equally badly off with both.
I suppose you're right. I hadn't thought of it like that.
Glad I put that one to bed.
Anyway, the point is, everyone at the yard's dead set on finding that fishy engineer.
The Ecos Aria in Greece. Interesting. I don't think I've ever heard of that. Or maybe I have. Sorry. That sure is... That sure is the sentence. That sure is the sentence, Fleur. I'm putting that in the fucking live stream chat.
There don't seem to be no clues to go on, so they're stuck.
There's nothing that can lead us to Drebber at all? Yeah, I think so. Fleur can give you permission though if you want to send a link. Did it not work? I still can't see anything. Still just asterisks, yeah. I don't really know. I've been through like everything, but I don't know what I'm doing. Where did you find the little mutt then, Gina? Oi, don't be so flaming rude, Otto. Slight overreaction, don't you think? I need to... Hold on. Let me check my settings and whatever. There we go. Now it should work. Now, hold on. Wait, do I have to find like a... No, there isn't a save button. Now it should work. Now it should work. I think literally just links in general, like hyperlinks, were like just blocked. Would it be a rickroll? Yeah, a bona fide detective. Sorry? I've given him a proper title and everything. It's Chief Inspector Toby to you. More senior than Inspector Gregson, is he?
Ooh, so he's a police dog, is he?
Bona fide, yeah. The police recruit dogs now?
I've heard that they're already being used officially in Germany as part of their city policing. They're used for chasing criminals and such like. They have a wonderful sense of smell after all.
I have a fairly good sense of smell myself as it happens. Irinosuke. That's not... It's not the same, I'm sorry, you can't compare it to a dog. I can tell undergarments that have been freshly laundered from undergarments that haven't. What the fuck is this? What is this? This entire case is just a lot.
That's nothing compared to this little fella, though.
Oh, really?
According to what the boss said, once Toby has got a good whiff of your drawers, he could chase that scent to the other side of the world.
The garden in the back does look really small, you're right. What, to the other side of the world? You mean he can swim?
Mr. Naruhodo, I think you may have missed the point by rather a wide margin.
I just can't believe this little dog has such an incredible skill.
I'm telling you, Ado, there's gonna be more and more dogs doing their bits for the police in future. Yes, I agree. Right, one of these days they'll be barking orders at us lot, not the other way around. Oh dear. Sorry, Gina. I don't think I agree with your vision quite that much. Well, anyway, whatever you think about that, Toby is Britain's first police dog. Found him down at the East End the other day. Someone had just chucked him out in the street.
There you go. I knew she'd lifted him from somewhere.
Oh, Gina, you're such a kind-hearted soul, aren't you? To children and to animals.
Okay, let's go upstairs.
my, so this is the machine that was used to deceive people into thinking instantaneous kinesis had taken place.
Yes, that's right. Or rather, it was the machine. It's a little worse for wear at the moment.
What extraordinary lengths Professor Limone went to in order to obtain the research grant.
No, the professor was tricked as well. He didn't know anything about it.
Yes, of course. It is amazing though, isn't it? The scale of the whole affair is so very British.
You're right about that. You'd never see such a grand deception in Japan, that's for sure.
Oh, look. Is that...
Lord Van Zieks. So I think we're more or less done here, aren't we? Shall we, Isuzoto?
Already?
He is the Reaper, remember? We'd do well to keep our distance, I think.
But we have permission to be here, from the top. We're perfectly well allowed to investigate this machine, as long as we don't touch anything.
From the top? Do you mean Lord Strongheart?
Exactly. So we can stay here and stare at this wreckage for as long as we like.
Could have been at the center of this explosion here and it wouldn't have bent her steel will.
What a terrible explosion it must have been. Even the steel girders have buckled and twisted in the blast.
Oh yeah, those for sure open. And what they call the birdcage was right in the middle of it all, just here.
But look, Mr. Naruhodo, that metal grill on the floor. It looks as though it's designed to open.
It does, doesn't it? If the floor had opened at the precise moment the explosion occurred, the birdcage could have dropped through and disappeared from sight.
I don't think there's any doubt that this was a very elaborate hoax, is there?
He dropped down through that gate and died. Fuck! I can't. Huh? No, I don't think so. But like, there was like. Should Van Zieks not have a parasol to keep the sun from burning him to a? You got a point.
Look at that horn-shaped transmitting device. Isn't it amazing?
That's exactly what I thought when I first saw it.
It makes you think, doesn't it? If only it had just been a normal horn, none of this would have happened.
That's almost exactly what I thought as well. But I can predict what you're going to say next in that case. You're about to say, nothing ever goes to plan, aren't you?
No, I would never say something like that.
Okay, well, good to know, I guess. This wasn't here yesterday.
Really? But if I'm not mistaken, it's the cage in which the victim was standing before he was apparently beamed through the air.
That's right, the birdcage. According to what Professor Limone said in court, it's made of wood.
Or more precisely, Japanese cypress, I think. And despite having been in an explosion and then falling from a great height, it's relatively unharmed. What wonderfully durable construction, would you say, Mr. Naruhodo?
I understood that the forensic investigation team had taken it away yesterday to examine it. I suppose they must have brought it back here when they finished their work.
But sadly, not with the body inside it.
No, that's right. I know we were given strict instructions not to touch anything, but still. This is too important of a piece of evidence to overlook. We might need it for the trial. Did he just pick it up and bring it with him? Just like put it down his fucking pants, just like, yep, there he goes. Ugh. Least approachable man in the world, winner 10 years in a row.
Be strong, Mr. Naruhodo. Your country and your assistants stand firm behind you.
Lord Van Zieks. What? Well, beautiful weather we're having, isn't it? I thought I was making it quite clear that I didn't want to be disturbed. Apparently, you Nipponese are unequipped to read the signs. Oh, I read them. So, what are you doing here? Entry to this area is prohibited. Well, the thing is...
Lord Chief Justice Strongheart granted us permission to investigate. On the condition that we didn't disturb anything.
And yet you've managed to disturb me. Never mind. State your business then. Come to think of it, there are quite a few things I'd like to ask Lord Van Zieks about. Not least of which is that awful case, even though it's nothing to do with this.
Ask away, Mr. Naruhodo. You won't know unless you try.
So about your brother. So, Clint. What's the name of your older brother? I understand, Lord Van Zieks. You Nipponese. I always have to be on guard whenever you're around. So, you've been investigating me, have you? Oh, no, it's not like that. Well, alright, it is a bit like that. My older brother was also a prosecutor. He was the pride of the Van Zieks family. But tragically, a vicious killer took him from us. The professor, you mean? Is something funny? That's the extent of what you've discovered, is it? I shouldn't be surprised. Sorry, there's more to it. Lackluster work is very much your trademark, isn't it? Ugh, you're too kind. Are you going to twirl Nipponese with the same brush next? So tell me, what's your interest in that historic incident?
As it happens, Lord Van Zieks, there's a rather curious case that's come to our attention. Are you aware of the Madame Tespel's Museum of Waxwork by any chance?
I am, naturally. I believe that since last month I feature in one of the displays there, Public Scorn. Of course, the infamous Reaper of the Bailey would have to be exhibited, wouldn't he?
Well, a particular waxwork has been stolen from the place and held for ransom.
A particular waxwork? Which... Wait, you mean... Yes, it's the professor. Mr. Sholmes is investigating the case as we speak. I was unaware of that. He's turned as white as a sheet. Are the police trying to locate the engineer, Mr. Drebber, already? Surely that goes without saying. We're very keen to see him found as well. The trouble is, we don't have much to go on aside from the description of the man we heard in court earlier.
Which, according to Professor Limone, was of a tall, thin gentleman who has straight white hair and wears a black monocle.
So, I was just wondering, I mean, I realize it's probably not possible, but,
we'd very much appreciate any more clues you can give us.
Wow, Tsusato-san really knows how to take the bull by the horns. Fine, why not? I have a photograph of the man here from an investigation 10 years ago. Though it appears he already had that black monocle at the time. At least she's honest, yeah. What? Oh, no, nothing. I was just surprised that you shared that with us. We'll need the man's testimony in court tomorrow. Which means we have to do everything we possibly can to track him down in the short time available. So why wouldn't I show you the photograph? What is it about Lord von Zieks? Sometimes I just can't work him out at all. Ah, the file I requested for the trial tomorrow. Thank you. Are you alright? Who is this man, Mr. Naruhodo? Lord von Zieks' apprentice, apparently. So I'm not the only one. Misato-san can see it too.
Lord von Zieks, may we speak with your apprentice for a moment?
With him? Why?
Kazuma-sama!
Don't believe it.
Your posture, your presence, it can only be... It's you, isn't it, Kazuma-sama?
I felt something strange the very first time I encountered this cloaked figure. As if I knew him somehow. Can it really be you, Kazuma? Wait! Too late. What's going on here? I mean, yeah, there's no way it's not. What is your interest in my apprentice, exactly? You act as if you know the man or something. Well,
Since when has he been here? Since when has he been in your care? I don't recall you having an apprentice before I left Britain 6 months ago.
Lord Strongheart introduced him to me about 3 months ago now. With instructions to mentor him as a prosecutor. But he didn't tell you why, did he? The man appears to be suffering from amnesia. He's forgotten every last detail about himself.
He has amnesia.
Tomorrow, he will appear in court at my side. What? He's to serve as my judicial assistant on Lord Strongheart's orders. He'll be in court with us? Now then, unless I'm much mistaken, I believe this conversation has run its course. Oh, yes, thank you. Definitely saw a reaction there. When Susato-san called out like that, it really seemed to hit a nerve. When she called out Kazuma-sama.
You'd already met the masked man, hadn't you, Mr. Naruhodo?
Yes, yesterday in fact, at Lord von Zieks' office.
I see. And if Kazuma-sama really is still alive, it means that Mr. Sholmes lied to us.
I know. We're going to need to speak to him about that. You're going to have to leave now. The forensic investigation team are due to arrive shortly. If they find you here, it will cause problems. What sort of problems? Foreign affairs problems. Well, we could do without that. Alright, we'll be on our way. Let's go, Mr. Sato.
Of course.
Okay, can't show it to Gina. I mean... Gina, we were actually hoping that we could investigate the scene again. Alright. Why can't I skip this? That's really strange. I went through this earlier. Yeah, okay, we can't look around up there. I have to help you out. I'm just a trainee, ain't I? Ain't nothing I can do. When it suits you, yes. Okay, whatever. Let's go to Madame Tispel's and see if we can find Sholmes.
Oh my! No wonder it's called the House of Horrors. I'd like to turn on my heels and go straight home, via the confectionery.
Being scared makes you crave sweets? I can understand that.
I was looking forward to a reunion after 6 months away, but there's no sign of Mr. Sholmes anywhere.
That's strange. He should be here investigating the abduction of the waxwork. Oh well, I suppose we'll just have to come back again later. I can't tell if they're joking or... Oh, I guess they were serious. Okay, well... We'll just come back here later then, I guess. Anything at the lab? Nothing at the lab. Back home?
Nothing.
Nothing. And nothing. Okay. Maybe show this to Limone? No? Nope. Nothing. Oh, police. Yes. About this, Gina. I'm still learning my letters at the moment. I only know A to E. So if I ain't too much bleeding trouble.
Actually, Gina, it's the back of the card that's important.
How come?
It's just a dirty old smudge on the back, that's all. It turns out that this very high-quality French machine oil, it has a very particular scent, apparently.
We don't say. Let's have a sniff. Let's have a whiff, then.
You sure? I don't smell nothing.
No, we didn't mean that you should smell it.
Right! You mean Toby?
His sense of smell is so good he can track people over the oceans, can't he?
Professor Limoni informs us that this oil is unique to Mr. Drebber's workshop.
I think he's picked up a scent.
So you mean, if he follows the scent of this oil, Toby could lead us to the Dodgy Cove's workshop? That's right, that's exactly what we were hoping.
Alright then, we'll give it a go. I'll just borrow that. What? Wait, when did you... Wants a pickpocket.
I can lead anyone to that draper's workshop, I'll be the boss's boss before next week. Oh yes, Gina. I'm sure you'll be promoted.
Poor Gregson.
Right then, Otto. Leave it to me.
Sorry?
We're gonna get going after that dodgy engineer cove right this minute. Oh, but hang on. Someone's supposed to be on guard duty here all the time.
I'm afraid we can't help. We need to get on with our investigation as well, Gina.
Right. Oh well. Never mind. It ain't gonna be me what gets in the neck. It'll be the boss.
Poor Gregson again.
Ready, Toby? Got the oil scent, have you? Come on then, boy. See you later. I do hope the scent of that oil leads them to that swindler's workshop.
Yes, I hope so too. Ideally before the dog swims across the channel to France.
Lab?
Still dead. Okay. The spells? Nope. Back to the experimentation stage? Nope. Back to prison? Same old, same old. Lord Chief Justice? Nope. Sholmes' suite. Back up here. Nope. Obviously there's something I need to do. But I just can't think of it for the life of me. Ugh. Oh, I guess I'll just have to examine everything in the... Let's go back here. And nobody's stopping us now. What happens if we just go up? No, we can't. That's fair. Stage up there is where the experiment was set up. It's very high. 30 feet. 9 meters. We can't get up there. The scorching on the ground that you mentioned. Yes, and there's what's left of the green balloon's envelope. All clear evidence of the balloon that exploded on the day of the incident.
Poor Professor Limone. I do feel sorry for him that his dreams have been shattered like this.
Someone's well and truly burst his bubble, as it were. Did we talk to Dr. Scheidt? No, we didn't. But I've been trying to like go to her lab, but she's not there. So. I'm a bad person. Indeed you are.
Crystal Tower. I can't believe I'm seeing it at such close proximity with my own eyes.
You've really been looking forward to the great exhibition, haven't you, Mrs. Soto?
Oh yes! When I found out that I had to return to Japan, I'm afraid I cursed my luck.
Here you are, back in London, gazing up at the magnificent tower.
I know. Perhaps I was wrong to curse my luck so harshly.
Okay, that was it. Maybe she left the autopsy report? Thank you. I would never be able to find this, I swear. Look at this big, thick book here.
It appears to be an accounting ledger. It's a record of the forensic investigation team's spending, I think.
Or not. Maybe this is fucking completely useless. What is it?
It's clear that the team purchases various equipment and supplies on a monthly basis, but... well, one entry seems rather strange.
Maybe not. In what way?
They're buying 500 scalpels every month.
500? They must be working really hard on dissecting corpses.
I don't know. Judicial autopsies are only carried out in certain special circumstances. And scalpel blades can be sharpened too.
Oh, I thought you looked up what I had to do and were like, maybe there's an autopsy report? Like you were kind of just like nudging me in the right direction, but kind of like nonchalantly. It does seem a bit strange. You're right. 500 scalpels a month. What could they possibly be using all them for? You were indeed onto something. What are you doing? Sorry, we had something I wanted to ask you, but you weren't here, so... wait, what does this man look like again? So you thought you'd snoop around. That's acceptable to you people from the East, is it? Just figured that since she wasn't there, but the location opened up, that something must be there. Yeah, I thought I finished the room. So, Lord Strongheart told us, you see. But it was you who examined the victim's body. Mr. Assman's body, I mean.
So we came to ask you about your findings. On Lord Strongheart's advice.
Very well. If the Lord Chief Justice has given his consent, I'll tell you what our investigation revealed. But when we are done, you must leave immediately. What'd you find? So, you want to know what the forensic investigation team determined from its examination of the scene. But you're right! Considering I never found anything like of particular interest here, that there really should have been something more. Which there was. Because it didn't... because I didn't find anything and it was still open to us. You're right. You want to know what the forensic investigation team determined from its examination of the scene. The victim, Mr. Odie Osman, who disappeared from the experimentation stage amid an explosion. And the Mr. Osman, who appeared moments later partway up the Crystal Tower. Were without question one and the same person. That is the team's conclusion. But that can't be right. If it was an elaborate trick, we can only speculate about how it was carried out.
Let's see, if two people who looked very similar to each other were involved, they could have made it appear as if one single person had switched places, couldn't they?
Very true, but sadly, in this instance, that was not the case. The man who disappeared and the man who subsequently reappeared was the same person. The fingerprints at the scene make that quite evident. Ah, fingerprints. They are not yet officially recognized as forensic evidence in the British justice system. But one day, they will be used as an investigative aid, as a matter of course.
Oh my, but that would mean that the instantaneous kinesis actually took place.
So, where does that leave us? My team was tasked with investigating, not drawing conclusions. Instantaneous kinesis is impossible, and yet the body did move from one place to the other. This hasn't cleared anything up at all. It's made the whole thing even more of a mystery. Emma Sky?
Mama, what's this?
Where did she spring from? And did you just call the doctor Mama? This is a lawyer, dear.
Oh.
Hello. To meet you. Pleased to meet you. Yes, I am a defense lawyer.
Mama.
Yes.
Can I cut this one up?
What? I take it back. This is not Emma.
Never seen you inside an Eastern person before. I want to know what it looks like.
Of course you can't. It's a live specimen, as you can very well see.
Boring.
I think I just had a near-death experience.
Oh dear! Mr. Naruhodo, you're as pale as a corpse.
Then let's leave before I'm mistaken for one. Well, I think we've done all the investigating we can here for now. We could just determine the whereabouts of Mr. Drebber.
I'm sure Gina and little Toby won't let us down. Now then, do you think we ought to try to speak with Mr. Sholmes at this point? We have things to discuss and I'm dying to meet him again after all these months.
Yes, it's quite possible he might know something useful. You're right. We ought to find him at Madame Tuspel's. He's supposed to be working there as a temporary waxworks exhibit.
Iris told me all about his latest and usual venture.
Okay, here we go. Are Drebber and Scythe siblings / partners? They are both so gosh darn pale and white-haired. Yeah, that's why I was like, what does he look like again? Because they're kind of similar.
Here we are again, at the House of Horrors. I'm afraid I haven't got used to the place yet. I'd still like to turn on my heels and go straight home. Via the confectionery, of course.
Susato-san is really after something sweet today, isn't she? You found him, I take it. What's the matter?
Look, Mr. Naruhodo! Look at that waxwork! I'm quite sure it wasn't there before. It looks exactly like Mr. Sholmes down to the very last detail.
Aha!
What is it?
Oh, sorry. I think you'll find that's the temporary waxwork himself.
Ah, the friend of my dedicated employee.
Oh, yes. Hello again. It's Ryunosuke Naruhodo.
I must say, I'm quite spellbound by the great detective. He is a marvel. My precious waxwork is already back where it belongs.
You don't mean...
But yes, the mystery is solved already.
Wow, Mr. Sholmes can really engage his brain when he's hungry enough.
So as you can see, he has returned to his habitual duties.
Yes.
His habitual duties? Hello? Do not disturb, huh?
Poor Susato-san, she looks very perplexed. I want to take a look at that. The heavy curtains in the middle of the House of Horrors. Whatever's on the other side of them, you just know it's going to be terrifying, don't you?
The sign says it's the Madame Tuspel special exhibit. It seems you have to pay extra to go inside.
I know, can you believe that? Pay more money as if we haven't been scared enough already.
It's not my doing, Mr. Naruhodo.
I guess that didn't work.
We really do need to speak with Mr. Sholmes, and I am longing to say hello again. But where is he?
I think you might find that he's quite nearby, actually.
Oh, what do you...
Indeed, my dear fellows, it is I! The world-famous great detective in waxwork, Sherlock Sholmes. Susato-san! Susato-san! My most humble apologies.
I thought I died and gone to eternal paradise for a moment.
Via London. My dear madam, allow me to make amends by offering you a tasty free deduction at some point. As long as it's not of questionable street food quality.
I don't understand. Why are you working as a waxwork here, Mr. Sholmes?
Merely a secret identity, you understand. Though the case is largely solved now.
Largely solved?
We're talking about the waxwork abduction, I presume. Indeed we are, my good fellow. And as I predicted, it was as easy as proverbial pie. Though, I confess, I am yet to partake of a pie, proverbial or otherwise, or any food so far today for that matter. That stomach rumble echoed around the whole museum. So how did you manage to solve it so quickly? Ah, well, do remember I said it was largely solved. Anyway, I simply negotiated with the culprit. Are you familiar with the so-called telephone?
Oh yes, it's a most modern invention allowing you to hold a conversation with people far away. In Japan, only the imperial capital and a handful of other cities are connected as yet.
This morning, a telephone call was received here from the perpetrator of the abduction. As such, I was able to negotiate terms, and in the end, the waxwork was returned. That's amazing! Just between you and I. It would appear the culprit had always intended to return the stolen waxwork in any event.
Oh, but I thought whoever was responsible had demanded a ransom, no?
Yes, I think perhaps. The ransom demand was necessary to avoid unwanted suspicion regarding the true motive.
But does that not mean your negotiating was entirely unnecessary?
A fact that I must ask you to keep from Madame Tespels at all costs. A hungry young Iris awaits my return to Baker Street after all. Poor Iris. Now then, do I sense that you have some business with this great waxwork? We're in the process of trying to track somebody down. Oh?
Yes, a man by the name of Enoch Drebber. He's the swindler who duped Professor Limone and the engineer who built the kinesis machine.
A swindler and an engineer. Quite the modern man. He also seems to be a conjurer of sorts, too, with considerable knowledge of stage magic. You really need to locate him before the trial resumes tomorrow morning. But we have so few clues to go on. That's the trouble. Do you have any good ideas? I have no data yet. It is a capital mistake to have good ideas before one has data. If I knew something of the man's appearance, at least, I may be in a better position to help. Yes, Drebber's appearance. Fortunately for you, however, presently I have little to occupy myself and little to fill my stomach. As soon as you find any clue, no matter how small, I should gladly give you my thoughts on it. Oh, fuck me. I gotta go to %. Mr. Sholmes, would you cast your eyes over this photographic print?
It's of Mr. Enoch Drebber. The face of the engineer we seek.
Well, all Englishmen look broadly the same, of course. So looking at the photograph won't be particularly instructive. Are you alright, Mr. Sholmes? Ah, yes, forgive me. Very interesting this. Very interesting indeed.
What's wrong, Mr. Sholmes? You've turned quite pale all of a sudden.
Okay. Mr. Sholmes, did you lie to us? My dear Mr. Naruhodo, stay that piercing stare. What is this about?
Last winter, when we were first on our way to Britain aboard the steamship. Your words were very clear.
Let us unravel this mystery and discover what events led to this curious murder.
You told us that it was murder, and you examined Kazuma-sama's body.
Indeed, and wherein lies the problem? We met him earlier today, the victim, Kazuma Asogi.
You're quite sure? He was wearing some sort of mask and was apparently suffering from amnesia. But yes, I'm quite sure it was Kazuma-sama. You must have known at the time, Mr. Sholmes, that he wasn't actually dead.
Well, I can only assume I was swept up in the murderous atmosphere at the moment. But the fellow wasn't dead at all? Priceless! I don't suppose that performance would pass muster, would it, Mr. Naruhodo? I could believe that the crewman present at the time made a mistake, but not you, Mr. Sholmes. I will now tell you something of the first importance, my dear fellow. Great detectives are wont to lie. It will serve you well to remember that. Please, Mr. Sholmes. Tomorrow in court, you will find yourself on the threshold of a very great mystery. For now, I'm afraid that is all I can say. I have a suggestion, Mr. Naruhodo. Will you indulge me? Oh, well, what is it? As I explained to you when you arrived, the missing waxwork has been returned. And I personally reinstalled it in the exhibit from which it was taken, behind those thick curtains. Oh, yes, the Professor exhibit, isn't it? Would you like to see it for a mere 5 shillings? That's a special, one-time only prize, you understand. What? The opportunity won't come again, I might add. Wouldn't you like to see the fruits of my labor?
Oh, well, we do have a rather pressing investigation to carry out. Perhaps we could postpone?
The price is a very reasonable 5 shillings. I think you'll find it's well worth it. Are you being quite serious, Mr. Sholmes? Surely. You need only look at my expression to ascertain if this is seriousness or silliness. I can't fucking tell. I can never tell with you. That's the point.
Very well, it wouldn't hurt. Here's your 5 shillings.
Gratefully received. So, the special exhibit awaits behind the curtain. I invite you to peruse it at your leisure. Well, the money's been spent, so let's go and see the special exhibit. Through those heavy curtains at last. Unless he's laughing, his expression is almost always the same. Yep. What are we gonna find behind curtain number 1? 5 shillings we've had to pay. It doesn't seem right somehow that Mr. Sholmes slipped the money into his own pocket, does it?
No. We could ask Gina to retrieve it for us, using her special skills.
Pickpocketing police officers and diddling detectives? Is this what makes Britain great? Not to mention demigod prosecutors taking the law into their own hands or chip-loving inspectors.
Inspector Gregson comes off rather well on that list, I think.
Someone's missing a head.
Oh dear! I felt a shiver run down my spine as soon as we walked in here.
Mr. Sato! I say we turn on our heels and go straight home, via a really big confectionery.
We certainly can't do that. We've paid 5 shillings already.
True. Actually, now I'm looking a little more closely. We've paid good money to see an exhibit that's clearly incomplete. The nerve of the great diddling detective is far more terrifying than anything else in this place.
This must be what Mr. Sholmes meant when he said the case was largely solved.
Be that as it may, Mr. Sholmes heavily implied there'd be a clue about the engineer in here, didn't he? But where? Since we've paid 5 shillings, let's do 5 shillings worth of investigation, shall we?
Yes, we will get what we paid for.
That fear or frustration that's making Suzuto-san's voice tremble?
This part of the exhibit is just as disturbing as the rest. It looks so real.
It seems to be a young man in a white overcoat.
And he has a large shovel in his hand too. Look.
Perhaps we should investigate it in a little more detail. That's quite a large lamp the man's carrying. Or is it a lantern? It's not unlike a Japanese chochin paper lantern, actually, is it?
Lamp, lantern, chochin. The point is, it casts very little light. To be walking alone in a graveyard at night with only this. Well, I certainly couldn't do it.
I'm not sure I could visit a graveyard at all, even in broad daylight, to be honest. Can't see his face very well, can you? Perhaps if I just...
Do you think you should be manhandling the exhibits, Mr. Naruhodo?
Put it back exactly as it was, don't worry. Did he just remove his fucking head? Interesting.
What on earth? How can...
I don't believe it. Black monocle.
Mr. Naruhodo, is it possible that this man is...
Yes. It's Enoch Drebber.
The color of his hair is different, but...
It's unmistakably him. Indeed it is. Is it? Yeah, okay. Sholmes. Here. Mr. Sholmes! This man is the subject of your present hunt, I believe. Yes, that's right. Just who is this man? Why is he here in this exhibit? And why does the convict behind him have no head? So... no head? The head was missing when the model was returned by the thief who stole it. What a surprise. So then the case isn't yet solved, is it? Did I not say so myself? Largely solved were my words, I believe. But I must locate the missing heads to the suite, as Madame would say, or I'll be in grave trouble. A very hungry Iris still awaits my return to Baker Street, preferably with rations. Ugh. Do you know, though, something about this room is strange. Strange? What do you mean? The displays in the House of Horrors are supposed to depict real events, are they not? Indeed they are, Miss Susato. Do go on. And as terrifying as they are, the scenes in the other exhibits are believable. But this one... This surely couldn't ever really have happened, could it? I think it's time I educated you a little. About the nature of the incidents involving the professor 10 years ago. The resurrecting convicts. I believe I told you a little about the professor yesterday, did I not? He took the lives of 5 victims, every one being either a member of the aristocracy or royalty. All were attacked by an enormous hunting hound and had their throats ripped from their bodies. Oh gosh, an enormous hound! How awful. After taking the life of his fifth victim, the killer was apprehended. It was a case of unprecedented magnitude in Britain, you understand. Accordingly, a hound, you say? Yeah. The professor was tried in a closed court. No members of the public were permitted. Closed court. So you mean that the professor's identity... Did this hound come from Baskerville, perhaps? Perhaps. As you've surmised, my dear fellow, his identity was never made public. Naturally, he was found guilty and was summarily sentenced to death by hanging. He was buried in a grave at Lowgate Cemetery, which adjoins the rear of the prison where he had been held. However, that was not the end of the affair. Oh! The very night that he was buried, the convicted man came back to life. Came back to life? He clawed his way out of the ground and emerged into the moonlit graveyard. The exhibit here depicts that very scene as described by the sole witness to those chilling events. There was a witness. But of course, my dear fellow, it was none other than the young man in the white overcoat. Enoch Drebber. He saw it happen. So this is waxwork. This is a waxwork model of Enoch Drebber. 10 years ago. The convicted professor, having been gibbeted and buried, emerged from his grave in the dead of night. The sole witness to that unimaginable scene was this young man. From appearances, I would say he was about 20 years old. It's so horrifying. Scared out of his wits, the young Drebber ran to a nearby police station to report the incident. And the sheer terror of what he'd seen is said to have turned his hair white overnight. Yes, as shown in the photograph we have of him, his hair is completely white. For the following few days, the story of what he'd seen was on every front page in the capital. The public was frantic for every last detail about the killer who had come back to life. As you've seen, an exhibit was even created here at Madame Tispel's. I can quite understand why the man's hair turned white, certainly. But what I don't understand is what Mr. Drebber was doing in the first place. In a lonely graveyard in the middle of the night. Yes, what was he up to? The professor's acts of terror threw London's upper classes into complete panic 10 years ago. It was a great scandal, one might say, at the very highest levels of society. And since the killer's identity was never made public, rumors abounded. After all, no killer had ever before systematically employed a dog as a weapon of murder. Yes, I can imagine the impact that case must have had. But in time, of course, the rumors abated. So too did the talk of the shocking witness account of the convict who came back to life. It was forgotten, dismissed as a dubious ghost story, as a preposterous parlor tale. But why did people stop believing it? Why? Simply because there was no resurrection to speak of, as was established in fact. What do you mean by no resurrection? The police investigated the grave in Lowgate Cemetery and published their findings. The convict's body was found to be buried exactly where it had been following the execution. No, but that would mean Mr. Drebber must have lied to the police and the newspapers. That would appear to be the only logical explanation, yes. The young man subsequently vanished from society and nothing has been heard of him since. It's rather striking, then, that he should resurface now, don't you think? Of course the convicted murderer couldn't really have come back to life, that's not possible. But Drebber's hair is unusually white, and if that really did happen overnight as a result of shock, it's hard to believe the incident was an out and out lie. Interesting. Mr. Sholmes, could you look at this photograph again? I see. So that's it. What, have you worked something out? There is indeed one deduction to be made from this photograph, yes. Each time you show it to me, it will cost you 5 shillings. Otherwise, I have nothing to add. Wonderful. And nothing for me to take away either. Cool. I thought that was gonna be something, but I guess not. I don't think there's anything here that I can show Sean. This must be the killer, the fiend known as the Professor. I think so, according to what Madame Tespel said. He killed 5 victims, all of noble or royal blood. The waxwork is so lifelike, isn't it? Like all the models in this place. I know, it looks like it could start moving at any moment, doesn't it? If only it had a head, that is. A weird noise? Oh no. Perhaps we should examine it in a little more detail. So this is the condemned man. Yes, a so-called professor. Then perhaps his head was chopped off by a guillotine. But unable to find peace, he emerged from his grave as a headless ghost. Do we have to entertain such terrifying ideas, Mr. Soto? Anyway, I'm sure the model had a head once. There was some metal fitting for it, see? Then perhaps Mr. Sholmes absent-mindedly forgot to reattach it. That's an extremely absent-minded detective you're describing, isn't it? Or perhaps the thief absent-mindedly forgot to include the head when he or she returned it to the museum. That would be an extremely absent-minded thief. Could there have been some reason why only the head wasn't returned? Maybe the heads were swatched. Maybe it was actually Enoch all along. Well, whatever the reason, it means we don't know what the face of the infamous professor looked like, do we? Oh. There's something caught just inside the convict's jacket here. It looks like a piece of broken glass. And quite a big piece, too. Where did you find this?
It's very thick, isn't it? About 5 times thicker than normal window glazing, I'd say.
Where could such a thick piece of glass have come from, I wonder?
I suppose it must have been made thick to increase strength.
But why?
Well, perhaps because the glass had to span a particularly wide area. Such as in a big building, for example.
Well, we've seen a large glass building recently, haven't we? And some of the glass was broken too.
Don't mean...
Exactly, the Crystal Tower at the Great Exhibition.
But why would glass from the Crystal Tower be lodged inside this waxwork's jacket?
Makes you think, doesn't it? Earlier in court, we established that the kinesis experiment was a trick. And now we discovered this fragment of glass here in this waxwork. Is it just a coincidence? Wait. Remember what? I don't remember who said it. But someone said that the person who went into the birdcage and the person who fell down were the same person. Well, let me just check. I just want to see how much we have left of this. It's, say, about an hour, maybe more. I don't know. Maybe the head is Mr. Assman. And he had, like... I was about to say twin, but no, that's not the thing. I don't know, like, how similar they are. Do they have the same fingerprints? I mean, I assume not. I never checked. What's this here?
This would appear to be a lens in the middle, so I believe it's probably a camera.
A camera? But so small. British technology is incredible, isn't it? I mean, what about Mr. Sholmes' skin prints?
I think perhaps you should treat Mr. Sholmes' inventions as exceptions to the rule. But anyway, why would the man be in a graveyard at night with a camera?
I wonder. Perhaps he was trying to capture the moment a dead body came back as a ghost on film.
Just borrow this for a little while, I think. Looking at the photographic plate inside the camera, we can see what picture was taken.
What's a photographic plate?
It's a piece of glass coated in a special emulsion that reacts to the light coming in through the lens. If we open the cover at the back of the camera, we should find it. Let's have a look.
You should see yourself, Suzuto-san. Your eyes are shining. Really do like machinery, don't you?
What a large shovel. He's holding it rather ominously, isn't he? What on earth was the man doing with a shovel in a graveyard in the middle of the night?
Miss Susato?
Yes?
That's a spade, isn't it? Oh my god, no. Forgot about this.
No, it's a shovel.
No, shovels are for digging. That's for scooping up loose material. It's a spade.
We've been through this, Mr. Naruhodo. It's a shovel.
No. We haven't considered trowels.
We've allowed ourselves to be distracted, I feel. Perhaps we should concentrate on what the man was doing with the implement.
So we're going to bury the hatchet? You're right, though. What's the man doing in the graveyard in the first place? That's the real question. Grave robbery. For sure. I mean, can't really be anything else, can it? Okay, yeah. What in the bleeding Norado? What have you gone and done? Gina, what are you doing here? I asked Iris, and she said this is where you'd be, so...
Gina, not so loud in the museum.
Madame Dispels will have you take a position as a waxwork if you're not careful. I think there might be a more pressing concern. Still had some flash powder left from 6 months ago, so...
Right, Gina, we understand, but please, put down the gun.
Sorry, I got scared. You should try being the one... on the other end of the barrel. So, what brings you here, Gina? What brings me here? What do you think? We found it! We found the Dojiko's workshop! What? You found Drebber's workshop? Yep. Toby's nose took me straight there. The boss and the others are heading over there now in the drag, so come on. Here's the address. I got the bus to write it out.
Oh, thank you, Gina. We'll make our way there at once.
I guess the weird noise was death because they haven't returned. Alright then, see you there. You go. Don't mind me. I'll just stay here. Being still. What? I know my place. In the exhibit over there.
Oh dear. Someone is feeling sorry for himself.
Let's go, Mr. Sholmes. You're coming. Your words hearten me, I must say. But if I were to shirk my duties here, Madame would have me pay monetary recompense. And I resisted. Forget that! I'll pay for everything! Then there's not a moment to lose, my dear fellow. I shall hail a carriage at once. You offer to share the cost for Mr. Sholmes, then.
I'll gladly pay half, Mr. Naruhodo.
Thank you, Mr. Soto. Right, let's go! Another one. That looks like...
Oh! It's another super high voltage instantaneous kinesis machine!
Indeed it would appear so. Though only a prototype, naturally. Ah, so you got here then?
Gina! Well done for finding this place! And in such little time! You've really worked miracles!
It's Toby who is the miracle worker. Ah, I thought you lot would show up before long. Hello, Inspector. That's one knitted brow. He looks like he's eating a lemon, not a bag of fish and chips.
So, Inspector, Is there any sign of the engineer?
Sadly not. We didn't find a soul in here.
Oh, what a shame.
Well, thank you for letting us know about this place and giving us a chance to investigate. According to what Gina tells me, we only found it thanks to a clue that you lot turned up. I wouldn't want to, say, go to Paris with a debt of gratitude unpaid now, would I?
Thank you.
Anyway, if you're hoping to snoop around in here, I get cracking. But Van Siegs and the forensic investigation team are on their way here as we speak. Them again. I imagine you've got the picture by now. They don't take too kindly to lawyer types. Right. So then, my dear fellow, let's turn this place upside down whilst we have the chance. You, Sholmes. Pardon? They take even less kindly to great detectives than they do to lawyers. Very droll, Gregson. Very droll. But you may consider me nothing more than an inconspicuous waxwork model. Right then, let's see what we can find in here. Ah. What on earth is this?
An aeroplane, Mr. Naruhodo.
Cat knocked a plant off my table. Oh, I was getting like low-key worried because you went to check on a weird noise and you just like didn't come back and I was just, they're dead. I'm glad it was just your cat. I'm sorry about your plants though. Yeah, I have experienced the same thing. I actually got it on camera. Because sometimes when I still lived with my mom, she used to take care of my brother's cat, which is like this like 12-kilo Maine Coon. And I don't know, he must have thought he was still like a small kitten or something. Because he like went up into the windowsill, which was like at the time like 8 centimeters wide, maybe. And he decided he was like just gonna walk behind everything that was there, so like closer to the window. And things fell to the floor. A lot of fun. Truly. Great fun. Love cats. Those bastards are glorious, but also the harbingers of destruction. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they just do it because they're bored, so...
An airplane, Mr. Naruhodo. One day, scientists believe it will allow humans to fly freely in the skies.
Is that how the trick will be described, is it?
Sorry?
Well, it's naturally suspended by a thin but very strong cable, isn't it? Not a... Ryunosuke! Ryu! My man! It's... Fuck, that's so funny.
Oh, well, this model is, yes, but a real airplane would actually fly high in the sky.
I'll suspend it from somewhere even higher in the sky, of course! Please, he thinks he's so smart. Just like, yeah, no, actually, like, sure, a dog may be able to sniff something out, but like, I can smell the difference between, like, newly washed underwear and freshly worn underwear. So, who is actually the smart one here? Like... Because large metal objects obviously can't really stay in midair unsupported. How would that work? God, puppeteering airplanes? New conspiracy theory. So to you, the solution is ever taller towers? Oh god, that's so funny. Ah, this appears to be most interesting. Yes, most interesting indeed, wouldn't you say? It's an impressive looking back massager, that's for sure! I no doubt that if you hit your shoulders a few times with that, your aches and pains would soon go away. Everyone are just judging him this episode, my god. It's a Royal Society trophy for excellence in science. A young scientist could wish for no higher honor. Ah. Would you like a massage? No. No, I'm fine, thank you. I had no idea it was such a grand thing. I think it's becoming increasingly clear that there is much more to this Mr. Enoch Drebber than conjuring tricks. I couldn't agree more, my dear madam. And how about you, Mr. Naruhodo? Wouldn't you like to take it with you? For your tired shoulders, of course. He's not going to let that go, is he? Ryunosuke says things with such confidence for someone who is so completely wrong. Yep. He really does. It's curious though, isn't it? You would expect such an important trophy to be proudly on display somewhere, not haphazardly cast aside. English gentlemen can be quite a mystery at times. This door doesn't want to open. Yeah, looks like it's got a pretty hefty lock on it. It's a specialist locksmith on his way over from the yard, so hands off till he gets here. With permission, Inspector. I could have that lock open in less than a minute. But you don't have the permission. And no one's giving it to you. He looks so defeated. It's just like, oh, I wanted to unlock the door. I wanted to lockpick the door open. Hurley sure. Hurley sad. So sad. Gregson looked as though he really enjoyed that. Well, there's no sound of anybody on the other side. No, Drebber must have fled at the first sign of danger. Oh, this is arrows. It's a European-style quiver of arrows, with steel bolts inside. Oh, do you suppose... Crossbow bolts, these. Just the right size for the bow you lot turned up at the exhibition grounds. Or they're actually called bolts, I didn't know that. Interesting. In other words... Yep. It's more evidence to support your theory. Your game theory. It all goes to show that that Drebber was the one pulling the strings behind the scenes of the old scout. Interesting. I'm sorry, Mr. Naruhodo. That machine is covered by the Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act. There will be serious repercussions if you were to examine it, from the Crown and the government. Well, those two don't seem to be holding back. It's quite hollow inside. No working parts or devices of deception to be seen, my dear fellow.
No loose change dropped on the floor or nothing. Not even a bone for Toby here, my dear fella. British people are very much ruled by their own ideals, aren't they?
I think that's just these two, Mrs. Sato.
Oh!
Is something wrong, Mrs. Sato?
Well, I thought I heard a noise from the far side of that door. Well, Gina, did you hear it too?
Yeah, I heard it and all.
What do you reckon, Toby?
Right, mind the grace. Whoever's in there, open up. This is Scotland Yard. Someone took off in a hurry.
Oh my! Someone is in there!
Oh, this rotten bleeding lock.
My dear Gregson, as I said only minutes ago, if only it were countenanced, I could unlock that door in less than a minute.
Fine, I'll take the rap for it. Just get us through that blasted door.
There, you may enter at will.
You've confused minutes with seconds, I think.
Time is of the essence, I feel. What are we waiting for?
Okay, lockpicking lawyer, let's go. Nothing for it, I suppose. This is an emergency.
There's a strong possibility that beyond that door is the engineer you will seek. Be prepared for action, my dear fellow. Yes.
Bolts is the most common term for crossbow ammunition. Although they can be called arrows too, generally the size is what determines whether people call them bolts versus arrows. Oh, okay, I see. What's happened in here? Why is everything upside down?
Rats!
There ain't no one in here after all. Oh no, there's a bomb.
But there must be. It was only moments ago that we heard those noises.
Maybe that was the sound of Draper running away.
But there's only one door into this room.
And no windows that could afford an escape route. Those skylights are too high. Someone's been walking up there. What's up there? Are they footprints on the ceiling? Gregson, no. Blow me. What are we then? Guys, I think maybe you should notice the giant bomb that's in the middle of the floor. It's like someone was trying to burn something in a hurry.
Oh, that looks like a set of blueprints.
To what? My Gregson. To that Professor Limone's bombing machine, is it? Blimey. If we'd had these, there'd have been no need to muck about trying to investigate all that scrap metal.
There is something of great interest here, too. This rope was lying on the floor at the foot of that pillar.
A rope? What's significant about that?
Never mind.
Y'all, I'm really worried about the bomb. I'm just...
You see, but you do not observe, Mr. Naruhodo. We must investigate the entire room thoroughly, and before the forensic investigation team arrive too.
Ah, I see you noticed the bomb, huh? Is it live? Mr. Sholmes, have you found something?
Ah, Mr. Naruhodo. Yes, in point of fact, something rather fascinating. What do you make of this?
Let's see. I've never seen anything like it before. It looks like a bundle of thick cigars wrapped up in a large... Miss Susato, what's the matter? Considering the bomb, he has gotta be in the safe, right? The only safe place from the blast. Ha! Ha ha! Aha! Very funny.
Surely that's a time bomb, isn't it?
What did you say?
A time bomb?
Sorry, but what is a time bomb exactly? You truly are one of a kind, Mr. Naruhodo. I won't take that as a compliment. Ha! You don't know nothing, do you, Otto? You haven't got a clue what it is either, have you, Gina? I invite you to consult a dictionary later, Mr. Naruhodo. But this particular specimen is no time bomb, though I confess it has very similar appearance.
Oh, well, thank goodness, but then what is it?
It's gonna be something even worse.
I see. So that's it. Goodness, Mr. Sholmes, have you seen through the heart of the matter?
There are times when I consider my lot most unfair, for I'm fated never to know how it feels to flounder as you do when a puzzle presents itself. But I have learned to accept the hardships that come with being a great detective, Mr. Sato. Here we go, I feel a great deduction coming. Once again, I can draw two conclusions from the scene we see before us. The first is that the inverted nature of the furniture in this room is the work of Drebber himself. Looks more like someone was looking for something. Don't know why they would waste all that effort actually flipping things upside down, like directly upside down, but sure.
Oh, but how could you...
And the second conclusion is that the small device on the floor there is, without question, completely genuine.
Please, Mr. Sholmes, you must explain everything.
It would be a pleasure. After all, it is a great detective's civic duty to teach Scotland Yard the finer points of the trade. Is it a bomb or not? Is that about to go off? Well, Inspector Gregson seems delighted with the idea anyway. Yeah, he looks delighted. That's the face of delight if I ever saw it.
You deflected the inspector's glare with such fortitude there, Mr. Sholmes. Well done!
You're too kind, my dear madam. I hereby dedicate this great deduction to you. Looks like you smelled a fart.
I'd be delighted.
So, shall we begin? Once again, Sherlock Sholmes is proud to present his logic and reasoning spectacular. Plain to see that this room is in complete disarray. The bed, the table, and chairs, and the lamp, everything is upside down. Almost as if every item in the room had, until recently, been happily positioned on the ceiling, before falling straight down onto the floor.
Every item in the room was on the ceiling. Are you suggesting that...
Indeed, the key here is gravity. It would appear that technology has at last succeeded in freeing us from the great pull of the Earth. The gravity in this room was reversed and then suddenly restored to normality. There was something written on the chair. Yeah, it's a safe code.
Goodness!
I just noticed too. The inverted furniture clearly reveals the truth about the part gravity played in this whole business. I quite understand your skepticism, Mr. Sato. I too was incredulous at first. However, my conviction in my analysis was cemented when I observed this. An anti-gravity device, almost identical to the one that featured in a dream of mine only the other day, in fact.
But then why does it have a clock on it?
A most relevant question indeed. That is a timing device that controls when the gravity direction will switch. Nah man, that's a fucking bomb! It was clearly a requirement for the engineer to be able to restore normal gravity automatically. And the commotion we heard earlier from the other side of the door was the moment the restoration occurred. Yes, the reason why everything in here has been turned upside down is because of the anti-gravity device. So you see, we need look no further to explain the state in which we now find this room. The direction in which gravity acts in here was reversed by Mr. Drebber, before being restored to normality in an automatic fashion some time later by the timer device. I have witnessed precisely this scene in a dream I once had when I fell out of bed. I was hoping it was just gonna be fucking... It was gonna end at gravity, just because gravity. Now, let us consider the next conundrum. What was our engineer friend's aim? Indubitably, the greatest clue we have to explain his actions is above our heads. Yes, how is it possible that there are footprints all the way up there on the ceiling? A question whose answer will lead us neatly to the truth, my dear madam. The reason there are footprints on the ceiling is because of the nearby skylight. Of course, Drebber's aim was singular, to escape. However, there is but one way into this room, excepting the skylight, that is. By inverting the gravity in here, Drebber was able to fall conveniently to the ceiling and make his escape via the otherwise inaccessible skylight, leaving those footprints behind on the way. But the ceiling in here is very high, Mr. Sholmes. If the gravity reversal was sudden, wouldn't Mr. Drebber have fallen up to the ceiling rather violently? Falling up is both scientifically and philosophically a rather interesting concept, I think. But the man was cornered with nowhere to run, so escape through the skylight was his only option. You may recall that I found this in the room earlier, which I believe offers a solution. Oh, the rope. To reach the intended destination, what better tool than this rope? By anchoring one to the end of the wall, the man was able to lower himself safely to the ceiling. Which explains how Drebber was able to escape this room before our arrival. He reversed the pull of gravity and fled via the skylight. And personally, I should very much like to reverse the pull of gravity again now, just for fun. Do not touch the bomb. Please, do not touch the bomb. Thus concludes Sherlock Holmes' great deduction of this topsy-turvy puzzle. She's completely spellbound. Mr. Sholmes, there's just one thing that troubles me. I would expect nothing less. You're destined to be troubled by just one thing for the rest of your life. The thing is such a thing actually possible? An anti-gravity device, I mean. I would say that with the man's current scientific knowledge, at the turn of the 20th century. It's no more possible than instantaneous kinesis. But your whole deduction hinges on it. Ah, but my dear fellow, when you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains must be the truth, however improbable it may seem. It's a marvelous line, wouldn't you agree? One of my more enduring pearls of wisdom. I had Iris come up with the exact phrasing. My original was clumsy. Yes, I have a feeling I've read it in something that Mr. Suttle lent me once. Objection. Actually, there is one other thing, Mr. Sholmes. Ah, the spell's broken at last. The rope you found was on the floor, wasn't it? Indeed it was, in lonely coils near the wall. But if Mr. Drebber had used it to escape in the way you described, wouldn't it still be tied to the wall? I'm just gonna let him sit like this for a while. Because... just gonna let it just like sink in. Mysteries inevitably unravel in the end. As I think you'll find, the ropes. And as evidence of such, you need only look at the mystery we face in this room, now skillfully unraveled. That argument is as circular as the coils of rope.
I think perhaps we might need to give Mr. Sholmes the usual little helping hand. I'm sure with some minor corrections, the great detective's great deduction will lead us to the truth.
Yes, you're right. We must do it quickly before Enoch Dubber gets too far away. We must do it quickly before that bomb goes off. If you're ready, then let us resume. Hold it, Mr. Sholmes. I feel like there are many better explanations to go to before anti-gravity. He's just living in a sci-fi dream, okay? I wish I could skip this. I can't. It's just the same. There we go.
To think gravity could have been reversed in this very room, I find the whole idea utterly enthralling. Only Mr. Sholmes could conceive of such an explanation.
Conceive? Convince? Was it conceive or convince? Conceive, okay. I wasn't sure. But the man himself admitted it was a scientific impossibility, so...
Yes, you're quite right. You must completely discount the idea at once.
That's unusually merciless of you, Mrs. Sato.
When you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains must be the truth. The great detective himself said so, didn't he?
While refusing to part with his dreams of anti-gravity devices.
Yes, I suppose so.
Well, let's see if examining this topsy-turvy scene a little more closely reveals some proof that shows exactly what the gravity in this room was or wasn't doing. Wait, it wouldn't be... It wouldn't be the gravity in itself, would it? Like, you would need like another source where that would like pull the gravity, right? I don't know, whatever. It's the safe anyway. Look, Mrs. Sato. When everything seems to be upside down in here, this safe is conspicuously the right way up.
Yes, that's true, but look more closely at the safe's feet.
There's a lot of very large bolts fixing it to the floor. Think before you speak, that's what you wanted to say, isn't it? Really put my foot in my mouth there.
I certainly didn't say that.
Okay, so it's not that. Oh, the vase. Well, I wasn't expecting to find a pretty bunch of flowers in here, that's for sure.
Look at that!
I know, the slender little vase looks like it's about to topple at any moment, but the flowers are thriving. Somehow it makes you think of the fragility of life, wouldn't you say?
To be honest, Mr. Naruhodo, Something else about it made a rather deeper impression on me.
Take that!
The upright vase clearly reveals the truth about the part gravity played in this whole business.
Upon my word, Mr. Naruhodo, you've surpassed yourself by completely turning my argument on its head. Trying to impress your assistant here, perhaps.
No one is trying to steal your spotlight here, Mr. Sholmes. Trust me.
As you rightly say, though it appears at first glance that all the furniture in the room is upside down. This unassuming, slender vase is standing keenly to attention. And unlike the large safe, there is nothing affixing it to the floor.
And it's the exception that breaks the rule.
In short, much as it pains me, the gravity in this room was never inverted at all!
We don't see Naruhodo enough during his investigations. I almost forgot about his new suit. Yeah, me too. My deepest sympathies for your loss.
Oh, poor Mr. Sholmes. But the show must go on. So, let us continue with our deductions.
Now that we know that this contrivance is not in fact an anti-gravity device, there remains but one other possibility. You don't say.
Someone deliberately turned over every piece of furniture in here.
Which might sound obvious, but leaves one mystery very much unsolved. Namely, why would anyone choose to do that?
Quite. And naturally, there is an explanation.
Yes, the reason why everything in here has been turned upside down is because of the anti-gravity device. He's absolutely determined that this device must have something to do with it, doesn't he?
I'm afraid the lure of an exciting scientific explanation is too strong.
Well, there's no doubt that somebody did this. Somebody turned all this furniture over. I just noticed he's wearing the old one. They're both wearing their old clothes in these sprites. Interesting. So whoever it was must have had a reason.
I'm afraid nothing comes to mind at all.
Oh my god, are you fucking blind? It's literally so much in your safe. In your face? It's so in your safe.
Take that!
Yes, the reason why everything in here has been turned upside down is because of the safe combination.
Precisely. I believe, Mr. Naruhodo, that you had a very similar experience once, did you not?
The face code is in your safe. Wait. I wake pies and make the dead. Yes, last year. When I bought a lottery ticket and noted the ticket number down on the inside cover of a book just in case.
That's it!
For people are forgetful souls at heart and always make a written note of important information.
Just keeping the ticket itself safe would be more sensible, I think.
And what, pray, happened next, Mr. Naruhodo? He thought of the same line. When the day of the draw came round, I'd forgotten which book I'd written the number in and had to turn my room upside down to find it.
That's it! For people are forgetful souls at heart and always forget where they've noted things down. None of you always note things in the same place.
I actually won the second prize, you know. But I couldn't remember which magazine I'd slipped the ticket into. Thank you, Mr. Naruhodo. But I believe I've proved my point now. Which is that a very similar scenario has clearly unfolded in this room. Finding himself requiring access to the safe, the occupant of this room needed the combination code. He remembered that he'd written it on the underside of a piece of furniture, but forgot which one, leading to the state in which we now find the room. Mr. Naruhodo. Yes. Yes, Mr. Drebber overturned all the furniture in here in a desperate hurry to locate the combination code that would unlock the safe. So very British, thank you. Now, let us consider the next conundrum. What was our engineer friend's aim? Okay, that's this one with the footprints in the ceiling. Well, if a change in the direction of gravity can't explain it, then how did those footprints get there? Yes, I feel as though that particular mystery has just become even harder to solve. Can we please focus on the fucking bomb? I can't think of any other way to explain it at all. Life was so much simpler in those halcyon days, when gravity could be reversed. It was minutes ago, and those halcyon days never existed in the first place. Well, I suppose we must simply put our faith in Mr. Sholmes and observe the area in more detail. Putting our faith in Mr. Sholmes is what gets us into these situations in the first place. It's hard to believe, but there's a shoe up there, look! Oh, good night! Thank you so much for your help today. Oh yes, and there are more footprints on this little balloon too. Perhaps the shoe was thrown up there and became lodged, do you think? If so, then judging from the number of footprints, it must have been thrown up several times. Why would anyone be throwing shoes up at the ceiling, though? Dear, that's beyond me, I'm afraid. This is a gas balloon, isn't it? It's tiny, but it does seem to be a real balloon. I think you're right. I think it's helium that's keeping it up. A green gas balloon. Why does that seem to ring a bell with me? If you can see, there are footprints on this balloon too. Look. Oh, yes, surely that's a clue, isn't it? But what it tells us, I'm not sure. Another shoe. The reason there are footprints on the ceiling is because of the nearby shoe. And on closer inspection, there are clearly footprints all over the balloon as well. In other words, the aim was never the skylight at all, but the balloon. But for what purpose? A green balloon. That seems somewhat familiar data. It was a piece of the green balloon's envelope that Mr. Naruhodo and Iris found at the scene. And inside the green balloon that Master Guts claims he saw above the stage when the incident occurred was the second birdcage, the crux of the whole instantaneous kinesis deception. You mean to say? We assume the balloon in here is a model of the one used on the day. There is a strong possibility something may be concealed inside it. Something our absconder was desperate to retrieve before making a hasty getaway. But the balloon's out of reach. Hence why he resorted to a projectile, namely, the shoe. Most probably, Drebber intended to tear a hole in the envelope by assailing it with the shoe. However, his efforts were thwarted when the shoe itself became a prisoner of the lofty heights. Oh dear! We desperately need to examine that balloon. If only there were some way we could see inside. You may recall that I found this in the room earlier, which I believe offers a solution. Oh, the rope! To reach the intended destination, what better tool than this rope? Mr. Sholmes has managed to bring the deduction back to the rope. Alright, I have to admit, that was clever. Do we just throw the rope up to the balloon and then pull it down to us to the ground?
Which is much easier said than done, I feel. And could take us a very long time as well.
True, perhaps we need a more surefire method. In fact, we already have one, of course, don't we? I mean, I assume it's a crossbow.
Take that!
To reach the intended destination, what better tool than this crossbow?
That was found at the scene, in fact.
And in all likelihood belongs to Mr. Drebber. The man had only brought it away with him that day. He could have avoided losing a shoe at such a critical time as this. So, shall we? Your curiosity is deeply stirred, no doubt, my dear fellows. What is it that Enoch Drebber has hidden inside that balloon? Oh, the head. A waxwork? Indeed it is. A waxwork head inside a metal mask. A mask that is shut tight and fastened with a strong and quite impenetrable lock. So we can't see the face inside. That means... Just a moment. This is the head of the waxwork model. Does that mean... Oh goodness. I see you've joined the dots, Miss Susato. Excellent. Of course, a headless waxwork model. The case of the abducted Madame Tespel's model that you'd largely solved. It was only the head of the killer that was still missing. Indeed it was. But I believe Madame Tespel's will now have to settle her sizable account with me. This, as you have now surmised, is the head of the infamous professor. Yes, but why is it here? This conclusively confirms my suspicions. The man responsible for stealing the professor from Madame Tespel's and returning it, son Tate, earlier today was none other than Enoch Drebber. This is incredible. Professor Limone's case and the waxwork abduction are... They're inextricably linked by Enoch Drebber's workshop. Bomb? 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 Do I need to repeat myself? Bomb? Well, it appears our logical pleasure cruise has come to an end, my dear fellows. All that remains is, yes, to speak with the architect of this adventure.
The architect?
You mean Mr. Drebber? And it seems quite impossible that he escaped via one of the skylights. Obviously, the man must still be here in the room. What? And his location should be abundantly clear. If you simply reflect on the journey we've made together during this deduction. Enoch Drebber is right here, somewhere in this room. Gee, could it be in the safe? So, Mr. Naruhodo, will you do the honors? Yes, of course. Mr. Drebber's hiding place must be... the...
Take that!
safe. Before we gained the access to this back room, we heard noises from in here. Which tells us that the engineer was still in the building at the point in time. He was in fact searching for the combination to his safe. And pressed for time, made no attempt to right the furniture that he overturned in the process. From which we can deduce that his search for the combination happened very recently indeed. In summary, Mr. Enoch Drebber is at this very moment inside the safe. Thus concludes Herlock Sholmes' great deduction of this topsy-turvy puzzle.
So, Mr. Naruhodo, I think perhaps it's time we ended this game of hide and seek, don't you?
By opening the safe, you mean?
What else?
Let's see, the combination was
1432582.
I knew that! Alright then, here goes. You found. Pure Sneakity, is this you? Robogoth. It kind of reminds me of that one guy from the Spirit of Justice DLC. Spirit of Justice, right? The wedding. The cyber, no. Not cyber. The steampunk wedding DLC thingy. Right then, sir. Mr. Enoch Drebber, I presume. Correct. You better start talking. You tricked Professor Limone with that bogus machine you built.
And you shall have to explain the theft of the waxwork from Madame Tispel's as well.
As I would be delighted to answer your many questions. Personally, I would advise that you deactivate my little parcel first. Deactivate? Your parcel? The bomb, you idiots, the bomb! I refer, of course, to the time bomb. I left it in a most prominent position. I see. Stunned silence. You're all gearing up to die with me, then? No! Mr. Sholmes, with only 7 seconds to spare! That was too close for comfort. I've got one foot in the grave already. Are you trying to help us get a killer or get us killed?
Mr. Sholmes' deductions can be completely life-altering, can't they?
Well, my dear fellows, that was a close shave. The resemblance to an anti-gravity device is really quite startling, I must say. No, those look like sticks of dynamite to me.
Anti-gravity devices don't exist!
Phew, I wouldn't push it, Mr. Sholmes. What happened here? What on earth happened in here? You've found me, haven't you? No need to screw me down any further. Everything in here is precisely what it seems. Yeah, well, we'll be giving it a thorough going over, don't you worry, Drebber. What fails to click with me is how you were able to locate my workshop. That I was not expecting. When I heard whistling from the other room, I knew it was time to bolt.
Whistling?
Ah, that would have been me.
Oh!
For some reason, I woke in fine fettle today. No words, just tightly squeezed chips. Clearly, I must have a screw loose though, as I couldn't remember the combination for the safe. And another one loose, as I couldn't remember on which piece of furniture I'd written it down. We also found a rope over by the wall. Yes, I had hoped to exit through the skylight, but sadly, the rope was too short. So, I then set about searching for the combination code to open the safe. Burning the incriminating blueprints, don't forget. Regrettably though, you failed to retrieve the head from the balloon among the rafters. And after that, you hid yourself inside the safe? having first set this parcel ticking.
Well, I had no intention of being nailed by the police.
A death wish, have you? Hiding right beside a ticking time bomb.
Please, why do you suppose I chose to hide inside the safe? It's no ordinary safe. It's specially designed. A dynamite explosion wouldn't leave a scratch on it. So, in fact, the safe was the only safe place.
Didn't I make that same joke earlier? Precisely.
But once you climbed inside, you wouldn't have been able to get out again. I invite you to look more closely. The safe is fitted with a handle on the inside to allow the door to be unlocked from within.
So it is.
I had always intended to blow this place to smithers in any case. I just wasn't expecting uninvited guests to come along and screw up my plans.
Do you mean to say you were planning to blow us all up?
No. That was unforeseen. What do you mean? Most people run, you see, when they see a ticking time bomb at their feet. I calculated the time required for a retreat to a safe distance and set the device accordingly. But your seemingly endless discourse in here threw a spanner in the works.
Yeah, I'm looking at you, Herlock.
Something wrong, Gregson. Do I have something on my face beside the usual eyes, ears, nose, and mouth?
I think we have a fairly good idea of what's been going on here now. But what about the two incidents you've evidently been involved in recently? Professor Limone's instantaneous kinesis experiment at the Great Exhibition, and the waxwork model you stole, which this head belongs to.
That's no ordinary head, you know. That's the head of the professor. Clad in a mask with a lock so strong, I'm unable to open it safely to reveal the killer's identity. I've been considering carrying it around as protection. After all.
Okay.
What's going on here, Gregson? I'm sure you're aware that I have sole jurisdiction to investigate here.
Yes, well... Dr. Scythe again. So the forensic investigation team are here.
And you know full well this engineer is a key witness. Why are you allowing this lawyer access to him? If Lord Strongheart knew of this, he'd be finished. You lot, leave at once. My dear madam, there is no need for such a threatening tone, I assure you. After all, there's no way to greet an old acquaintance, is it, Dr. Scythe?
Hello, Sholmes. Mr. Sholmes knows Dr. Scythe?
If it's protecting the machine next door that's causing such a sour expression on your face, you're quite misguided. It's really nothing more than a shell. You get out. But of course, we'll show ourselves the door. See, you haven't softened at all. Mr. Naruhodo.
Yes?
It would appear that our delightfully entertaining investigations have run their course for today.
But Mr. Sholmes...
Let us leave this place in the doctor's capable hands.
I said get out. Now. All of you.
Your presence here is not required either, Gregson.
Understood. I'll just say one thing before I head off. If it wasn't for this lawyer and his companions, we'd never have found this place, and the whole workshop would have been blown to bits. There was a time bomb set in here. Got this whole lot disarmed.
Inspector.
Something giving you a chuckle, has it, Drabba?
Ah, so sorry. Didn't mean to offend. You're quite right, of course. You did disarm the time bomb, didn't you? Yes, you did disarm that one. What are you... That one? You mean... There's another one. Oh no. It was an hour later that we heard the news of the enormous explosion that ripped through the experimentation stage at the Great Exhibition. Professor Limone's invention and all its secrets were blown away forever. We have the blueprints! Well, charred remains, but we do have them! Ah! Yes! Damn, that was almost 4 hours. That was way longer than I expected, I will say. Oh my god. Yeah. Anyways, I am going to end this here for today. Next stream will be on Tuesday, actually. And yeah, this episode was a lot. There was just a lot of things I wasn't expecting. Like, Hairbrain or whatever, saying that he was fiddled and diddled. I wasn't expecting that, and it was incredibly funny because, as I mentioned earlier, one of my friends has gotten obsessed with the Riddler recently, and just to mess with her and to be annoying, I've decided to call him the Diddler. So, it was just way too funny, way too, like, coincidental, and I kind of love that, to be honest. I'm enjoying this case so far. Yeah, I'm gonna continue this on Tuesday, and I hope to see you then. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And yeah, bye-bye. Bye-bye.